It's time to get this meeting started. We will start this morning with prayer. I will ask Israel Flores, the pastor at the Assembly of God, to come forward and let us get us started in a word of prayer. If you're able, please rise. Come forward, my friend. Good morning.
Let's go before the Lord in prayer. Father, we worship you, and we thank you for everything. Father, we thank you above all for the wonderful gift of your Son, Jesus Christ, because it is through his life and his sacrifice on the cross and his victory over sin and death that we are gathered here today to give you praise, Lord, and to call upon your blessings, Lord, over this meeting and over those individuals leading this meeting. Father God, we thank you for the wonderful nation that we live in. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings and freedoms. Though not perfect, Lord, it is a blessed nation by you, Lord. And we continue to ask your blessings over our whole nation, our city council today. Lord, may you give them grace. May you give them wisdom, Father God, in the process and making the decisions. And may you give them courage, Lord, to make the right decision, Father God. Thank you, Lord, for their sacrifices. Thank you for their time. Thank you for their dedication. Please, Lord, reward them generously, Lord. Please prosper their lives, Father God. We just pray for them in the name of Jesus and all the matters that are going to be taking place. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Let's get a prayer.
Thank you.
Prayer. Let's get a prayer. Can we go ahead and add, let this rain chance come true this week? Yes. Okay, let's add that.
Oh, good. I thought it was
God.
There it is. Rain's coming. And now, if I could have the members from the Student Council from the Central Freshman Campus come forward. Slade Shelton, Mickey Hinojos, Audrey Hart, Billy Quaylar, and Callie Clark. Good morning, y'all. I'm glad to have you here. And they're going to be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Whenever y'all are ready, get us started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank y'all very much. Let's get a picture, Brian. What do you want?
For Brian.
Come back this way. Let's get a picture. I appreciate you guys. That'll make me good on my Facebook page. Thank you guys. Thank you, ma'am. And we do have one proclamation. This is the Red Ribbon Week, October 26th through 30th, to be accepted by Paulette Snell, Prevention Director, the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council for the Concho Valley, and I believe you brought quite a few. Y'all come forward. Let me read this. Eric, you can come up too if you want to. Okay. Set it out then. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you going to accept our proclamation? All right. Alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages. It is imperative that visible, unified preventive education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs. The National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illegal drugs, no illegal use of legal drugs. The National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during Red Ribbon Week, the last week of October. Business, government, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizen service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. The City of San Angelo further commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the great city of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of October 26 through 30, 2015, as Red Ribbon Week, and encourage all citizens to participate in the drug prevention education activities that will be held throughout the month, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free San Angelo. Thank you, ma'am. And I'll just give you that. And who's going to make a speech?
I am.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your support of our prevention efforts. My name is Paulette Schell, and I'm the Prevention Director at the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council for the Concho Valley. This is my friend, Emily Sanchez. She is 12 years old. She is a cheerleader, and she goes to Glenn Middle School. She is the epitome of our future and what it's going to mean, what it does mean to be drug-free. Our research is showing in the community in the Concho Valley that 3 out of 4 youth are choosing to be drug-free. And no matter what you might hear in the media or see on Facebook, this is our future. And for that, I'm extremely thankful. With us, we have staff from the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council for the Concho Valley, Ray Valadez, Chelsea Ashton, and Latanya Smith. And this team, along with countless others, work hard in our community through our prevention efforts and community coalition to make a difference. But we need your help, and we thank you for that. The Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council for the Concho Valley offers outpatient services for those that are in need, and also intensive residential treatment. Soon we'll be able to offer detox, and that's something to celebrate as well. So City Council and Mayor, thank you so much for this proclamation, and Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
Where do you want? Right here. Get up front. Have that proclamation. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. You get his answers to this one? Thank y'all. And this is a time to cut your cell phones off or put them on mute before they ring at the wrong time, so I apologize for that. It is now our time in our meeting where we accept public comment. Let me read the legalities, and then I will open the floor up to anyone that wishes to make public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium. Begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 5 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. If there is anyone out there that would like to address the city council, if you have issues, pro or con, we're here to accept them. You've got 5 minutes. State your name and just form a line behind Harry. Go, sir.
Harry Thomas, community volunteer. Again, I would like to invite everybody to our 50th year celebration with the Boys and Girls Club on October 22nd, Cactus Hotel, 6:30 in the evening. Many of you sitting up here have already received personal invites. If you haven't, please see me at the break and I'll make sure that you get one. I want to invite the entire community. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. We're going to have a good time. Texas Roadhouse is going to serve food, and we're going to have a little music, a little entertainment, and some auction items. Please come and support one of the best youth serving organizations in the community. We've been around a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Anyone else? Good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing this morning?
Doing well.
Great. I just want to take the opportunity.
Let's start by stating your names. Keep everything legal.
Okay, let's make it right. Corey Petty with Suddenlink Communications in San Angelo. On behalf of Suddenlink and Hospice of San Angelo, I wanted to invite the chamber, well, not the chamber, the city council as well as the chamber, but as well as maybe city officials. Every year, just to kind of give you a little background, and Johnny Silvas and Mr. Morrison, Dwayne Morrison has also been part of it, we raise money for Hospice of San Angelo, a nonprofit organization here. And we've put on a fishing tournament for 5 years, and obviously with the water situations, we haven't been able to do that. So last year we came up with a citywide event, community event, to raise money called the Concho Olympics. We have several events during that event, during this time, horseshoe pitching tournament, washer pitching tournament, cornhole tournament, disc golf tournament. Also tug of war, and we've actually added a fishing derby this year for kids and families to come out as well. We have lots of kids events. So the reason I approach you today about this is we are doing a tug for charity, and we would invite you to be involved in that as well, to maybe tug for charity. We're going to comp 2 teams to come in and just kind of for show for the event, come out, and like I said, Johnny has agreed to be part of it, and Mr. Morrison as well. So we want to formally invite you to come out and be part of this and support this community event. Well, I'll be sending you an email with the dates, the times, and all of that. If you could respond to me if you're interested in doing that, and I'll send you the flyer with all the details. Okay.
Thank you very much. And we were out, Johnny and I were out there last year. This is a good thing. You had good participation last year.
We did. We had good
hopefully the
participation.
weather will.
Yeah, it's all laced right around the river, bringing people down to our river that we spent so much money on, which is a really great place to go. So
prettiest river in the entire world right now.
I agree.
And
Thank you.
I want to say, Mayor, that thanks to Corey for all he's done, especially for this organization that has kind of touched my life here recently. But again, us not having to sit up on that dunking booth was music to my ears. I'd rather tug a rope than sit there and be dunked in this weather. So anyway, Corey, you're doing a good job.
Thank
Fantastic.
you. And thank you guys for being part of that dunking booth last year. It was a hit, and we had a lot of participation because of it. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Dunking booth's a little hard on an old fat boy, though, let me tell you.
You can tug a rope, right?
Tug a rope. Thank you very much,
Appreciate
Corey. Do I have further public discussion? Come forward, Jude.
Good morning. My name is Jude Richard. I'm here because I'm bringing a concern from my neighborhood that the contract that the city let to resurface our roads may not be in performance with the contract standards, and I'm not sure what they are. However, the road is already falling apart. The area that has been done is coming away, and the old road is coming through, especially in my neighborhood. I don't know about anybody else's neighborhood. But the industry standard, when you take a look at it and the way that they're performing, they didn't even get close to some of the areas to the edge of the road where they should have, nor to the drainage system that's involved in my neighborhood. They've also dumped rock in an area where there should be no rock, and there's piles of rock sitting in people's yards. And we in my neighborhood find that this is unacceptable. So I'm coming to the city council on behalf of my neighbors that we look into this and hold the contractor responsible for the shoddy work that they've done.
Thank you, Jude.
You're
Talk
welcome.
with Shane. Shane, did you hear that, buddy? Talk with Shane Kelton at the back and give him all the particulars of the neighborhood so that he can look into this, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jude. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Julie Koskovich. I'm a resident of Bentwood, have been for almost 8 years. I know that you are looking at whether or not to legalize the golf carts.
Yeah.
If this is talking about that, you have to wait until it comes up on the agenda, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Good morning.
Hi, how are you? I'm Jill the dad, and I actually came for the spay-neuter, but he just brought up the road, so I thought I'd at least voice my opinion on it. I live in Country Club Lake Estates, and I don't know what neighborhood he was talking about, but I wanted to let you also know that that neighborhood, the roads are atrocious. We live on basic gravel roads now, so it was never packed down. So whatever they were supposed to do, like the second phase, they just dumped all the rock and left. So if you guys could come drive through Country Club Lake Estates and check it out.
If you would, check with Shane Kelton at
Okay.
the back of the room and tell him your concerns.
Shane, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Form a line in front of Shane.
Yeah.
Do I have further public comment? All right, if there's no further public comment, I'm calling this section of the agenda at an end. All right, let's go to our city council now, and I'll start with you, Ms. Grindstaff. Do you have anything that you need to say? Are there any statements, any announcements? And is there anything on consent you want to pull?
Not this morning, Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Lucy?
Well, I just wanted to remind everybody of the City Fit 5K with a mile option run walk. That's going to be held Thursday, October the 22nd, excuse me, at 6 p.m. And it's benefiting the Red Arroyo Trail. And also, I want to wish my sister happy birthday today.
Happy birthday, sister. And this does highlight this, goodness, this, what was it, $8 or $9 million investment that we have made from the Red Arroyo 2.5 mile trail system. It is wonderful So come out and let's support it. Thank you, Leslie. Do you have anything you want to pull?
No, sir.
Johnny, do you have anything, sir?
Just a couple of things. I know that I could also form a line with Shane with some of the calls that I get on the streets, and we understand the condition of the streets, and we're working on them. Calls that I get are calls about weeds, all over town. But the one call that I get time and time again, and I'm glad James is here, is these garage sale signs. I thought, we all thought that they were outlawed. You cannot put a yard sale sign on the corner of that intersection, but they seem to, pop up everywhere, all over town, and state right-of-ways, on city streets, just everywhere. And it wouldn't be so bad if these folks took them down after their sale was over, but they leave them up, and it just clutters up the already, damaged streets, the already weeds that are all around us. So I would hope that folks would have a sense enough, respect enough to, if you're going to do that, which is illegal anyway, to at least take the darn sign down when you're done with it. So I get that call more than anything else. So I just wanted to throw that out. Thanks.
You all right with the consent agenda?
Yes.
Marty?
I have nothing to add. I'd like to pull items C, D, G through K. I just thought I'd say that in light of Miss Farmer being gone. I really have
Let's all
nothing.
take them one at a time, man.
I really have
We do
nothing
need to stay
pull.
with our tradition, though. And hopefully you are not pulling anything.
No, I'm not pulling anything.
That'll work well. Rodney, what you got, buddy?
I'm not pulling anything off of the consent agenda either. I do want to thank the Southgate Church of Christ for allowing me to have the meeting for the Highway 277 in Grand Canal. We accomplished, I think, a pretty good bit from that meeting, and I appreciate the turnout. We had 60 or 70 people there, so it was really good.
Everybody's happy?
No.
Okay. You all right with the consent agenda?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to...
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got a second?
Minus.
With the change.
That's right. We do have one change. I'm glad you, thank you. On item number D, it's the Christian Village Drainage Improvement Material. It is written down as Benchmark Supply Company. That is a misprint. It is actually Ben Mark Supply Company. So it was just a typo, so we'll change Benchmark to Benmark, and you'll include that amendment in your...
Sure I will.
And you will include that in your second?
Yes, sir.
Do I have public comment on the consent agenda that it be accepted and approved as presented? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one, please. And that takes us to the regular agenda. And we are going to consider number A, which is second hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 3 entitled Animal Control of the San Angelo Code of Ordinances to add provisions related to spaying and neutering and microchipping pets. James Flores, your own, sir.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, City Management. James Flores, Neighborhood and Family Services. This is just that, a second read for spay-neuter ordinance for the City of San Angelo. It was brought to us to explore by Councilwoman Grindstaff, and I think we have done what we needed to do, and I think we've got a solid ordinance proposed for you for the second read. I'll be on hand for any questions.
Well, I got plenty of things to say about this, but do we want to start with public comment, or do we want to start with council consideration? Y'all want to hear public first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
No, I wasn't able to be here the last meeting. Could you just give me a brief summary, very brief, 2 minutes?
2 minutes. All right. I'll give you the benefits of the spay-neuter. No, it's basically, Councilman Silvas, you were out last time, and what the city as a whole has looked into this before. Councilwoman Grindstaff brought this forward to us. We have been thinking about it internally, obviously, and what we're trying to do is come up with an ordinance that will help, another tool that will help us offset the intake at our shelter. And just to give you some recent numbers, August intake was 486, or 468, and September's intake was 586. So we get up into the 700-800 range of intake animals a month. With 21, 24 working days, you can do the math, it's 30 to 40 a day. We feel that a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance in this city will help offset that intake and in turn help us with our euthanization rate that's out there as well. We've done some tremendous work towards the euthanization rate, and I think it's the numbers prove it. But it is a burden and a taxation upon the staff that we have entering the number of animals that we have. So not only the benefits of the health of the animal, it is a healthier, the disposition of the animal changes, their behavior changes. Most strays that are hit on the road aren't altered. So there's a lot of, I'm being rushed or hurriedly, so I don't know if that's giving you enough to go on or not. But that's the gist of the ordinance. We just want some help with the intake, and then there is some provability as far as cities that have been adopted this that have succeeded with it. And at the end of the day, I think the successful spay-neuter ordinance has to be coupled with a low-cost spay-neuter program. We are currently hiring a veterinarian full-time, and we want to offer that to the citizenry, basic inoculations and low-cost, if not zero-cost spay-neutering for the citizens that qualify for that program.
Let's take public comment first, and then when we have all of our public comment, then we'll talk about it in the council, and then we'll take a vote. We're going to start with you, Turner.
Yes, my name is Jim Turner, and this is one of those issues that keeps coming up about every 3-4 years, problems with animal control. The first, when I moved here roughly 25 years ago, it was a hot topic, and it still is. One of the problems I have with this ordinance is it does more than just spay or neuter. It has parts in there. We dealt with one of them last time on being able to transfer an animal, give them away. I still am not sure that that's the requiring a breeder's permit in order to sell a spayed, neutered, and legally registered animal is something that the average citizen should have to deal with. Second thing is there's other issues in there. For example, did anybody besides me notice that this also, for the first time, made San Angelo peace officers, in effect, also animal control officers? That's never been in the ordinance before, even though they do have to enforce the laws of the city of San Angelo. This changed to make peace officers responsible for animal control activity, when before that was up to the chief and the needs of the department. The other problem I have with this is a lot of the people that this affects within the city, besides the citizens themselves, don't appear to be consulted on this. This is supposed to be dealing with the intake to the animal shelter, but it was never put before the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. And by state law, they are supposed to be approving, setting, and guiding policy for that shelter. If this is going to help the shelter, why wasn't the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee in the middle of this? It's not been on the agenda this year at all. This has never been before them, that I can tell. If it was, then they violated the Open Meetings Act because it was never on the agenda. The other thing is, if you're having a good law, it needs to be specific and targeted and have a rational, observable, sometimes even measurable basis. No evidence on the percentage of the animals that are dealt with are owned by somebody has been presented, and it may be very high, it may be very low. But the last numbers I've seen said that the vast majority of the animals in San Angelo are not owned by anybody. We've got over 150,000 estimates I've seen, 100 to 150,000 animals in San Angelo that are basically wild pets. And it's to the point where you actually have a self-perpetuating population there. The other statistic that is very telling is even within those that own pets, less than half of them bother to get their pets spayed or neutered. Or excuse me, get them registered, tags, licensed, and so on. With a compliance rate that low on the current licensing and registration and the ineffective enforcement, to put it mildly, what makes you think that having a spay and neuter ordinance that's going to be enforced at the same level is going to be effective? The last thing is, at the last meeting, much time was spent on how great the microchip was compared to metal dog tags. But the ordinance was not rewritten or modified to remove the requirement for dog tags, a metal tag, on somebody who has their pet microchipped, even though that suggestion was submitted several years ago when the city first started microchipping. If you're going to microchip your pet, one of the benefits is you wouldn't have to have a metal tag. Why are we still requiring metal tags, especially when a lot of the vets don't even bother with it? Because it is such a nuisance. They come off, they're ineffective. If we're going to require microchipping, why are we still requiring tags? We do need to have effective ordinances and effective enforcement for animal control, for health, safety, just the general livability of the city. But I think we can do a lot more and a lot better enforcement without adding new regulations. And especially on the spay and neuter, one of the things that's been put out every time this issue comes up is a low.
I haven't been, but you're about to run out, aren't you?
That's just last point. They have been saying we're going to have a low-cost spay and neuter program forever. They've off and on had vouchers, etc., but they've actually never had a good, consistent spay and neuter program. And all of a sudden, we're going to require people to get spayed and neutered before we actually have a program in place that's going to make it affordable. This needs to be rethought. It needs to come back with something that is complete, targeted, and if it's going to be just spay and neuter, that's what it needs to be. This covers a lot more than just spay and neuter. Thank you.
Next.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer McCon, sorry. I wasn't here, unfortunately, for the first reading. I was disappointed I was out of town. But the way I understand it, Mr. Mayor, you're the only one who disagreed. Yes. So if it's okay, I'd pretty much like to address you. You made it very publicly known that you're against this ordinance, that you believe rescue groups and adopters save all the adoptable animals in the San Angelo Animal Shelter. They're here supporting the ordinance. Essentially, that there was not a problem was your belief. If that was indeed the case, I don't think Mr. Flores would be here today requesting a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance. His job would be entirely different. He would be running an adoption center. And he's not. He's running a concentration camp. His staff would watch animals come in daily without worry because in your theory, he would know the animals were going to be adopted or rescued. That is not the case. Instead, you have a shelter, rescues and citizens alike, united on this topic, who feel and see the burden of unwanted and abandoned animals that are begging City Council to approve and support this ordinance. It by no means is a cure, but at least shows the people of San Angelo that individuals will be held responsible for managing, San Angelo, that individuals responsible for managing the city acknowledge that there's a problem and are actively seeking solutions. What is the alternative? Mass euthanasias, which we have now. Increase in irresponsibility. We can have an increase in the astronomical budget you're already sending him. What does that tell the people of San Angelo? That it's okay to be irresponsible because we don't mind killing over 6,000 animals per year. To be frank, it's appalling. And I'll throw numbers at you. August intake, 468. 245 of those were owner surrenders. That's over 54%. 146 were strays. That's 32% of the intake. Combined, that accounts for 87% of your intake of animals. 240 were euthanized. 102 adopted. Doesn't support your theory, Mr. Mayor. That's a 40% euthanasia rate. In September, it increased. 586 were intaked. An increase of 138 animals in 1 month. That's 5.4 more per day. 51% of those were owner surrenders, 301 animals. That's an increase of 2.2 per day in 1 month. 236 were strays, 40% of the total intake. Combined, in September, 91% of the intake of animals came from owner surrenders or strays. 406 were euthanized. 118 adopted. A 52% euthanasia rate. If your theory was correct, 406 animals wouldn't have been euthanized, and you wouldn't have had an increase of only 16 adoptions. Intake numbers grew 31% in 1 month. Euthanasia numbers grew by 70%. Adoptions, 13. Santa Cruz implemented a spay-neuter program similar to this. In 8 years, they watched intake numbers drop from 14,000 a year to 5,500. You euthanized more than that in 1 year. A reduction of almost 60%. Euthanasia of dogs dropped from 30% to 17% in Santa Cruz. Cats from 60 to 50. So if you look back to the numbers, Mr. Flores stated previously that it cost him $77 per day to house an animal. If San Angelo had a reduction of 50% at $77 per day, that's over $22,000 per month, assuming that animal stayed 1 day. That's a reduction of over $270,000 per year, assuming they stayed 1 day, which we all know is not likely. I encourage you to rethink your view on this ordinance and support them, or you, Mr. Mayor, go out there and you select the 406 animals that need to be euthanized that month. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It costs us $77 a day to keep an animal in our shelter.
$71 a day was water, gas, light, hourly rate, FICA, Social Security,
So if you've got one
inoculation.
animal, it costs $71. If you've got 1,000 animals, you divide that by 1,000.
Well, as about the third day goes, that number starts dropping, but according to state regulations or guidelines, they want us to maintain or house animals up to no more than 15 days. We are exceeding that as a city. We've adopted an internal policy that exceeds 15 days. But your first 3 days, the first 72 hours of that dog's intake is very, very costly. After that, it does start downsliding. But there still is, it's still up there. But we come up with the 71. I think Ms. McCon said 77, but for about the first 72 hours, it's $71 a day.
And I would like you to answer one more question,
Yes,
too.
sir.
She's talking about the number of animals that are euthanized out there, and I realize that. But of these animals that are euthanized, do you euthanize any old animals? Do you euthanize any sick animals? Do you euthanize any wounded animals? Do you euthanize any wild animals? Do you euthanize any animals that are mean and incorrigible and not? Do you euthanize, or is every one of these animals that you euthanize every day, are they good, healthy, young, adoptable animals?
No, sir. We euthanize a portion of everything you just listed.
So even though we take away, we're still going to euthanize old, sick, hurt, damaged, mean animals. We're still going to euthanize animals.
Right, but the that percentage is way lesser than the healthy entering the shelter. But yes, to answer your question.
Next. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Kelsey Hall, and this is a very difficult subject for me. I spent the last 4 years working with a shelter trying to network these animals out. I have spent many times taking pictures, doing videos, begging and begging for people to save them. dogs that'll sit, that'll stay, that'll roll over, that are amazing with children, amazing with other animals. So they do. They kill very highly adoptable animals. It's not their fault. It's the public's fault for doing these animals no justice. So I truly believe that this is a great step, and I 100% support it, because I have cried many tears, like I am now, for these animals that lose their lives for no fault of their own. Thank you.
Kelsey. Next.
I'm Bill Ware. I'm a citizen of San Angelo. And I agree with Mr. Turner on his points, but this is an emotional subject. From my past experience, I found that messing with people's animals can get you in a lot of trouble. But as the mayor said last meeting, passing this ordinance isn't going to miraculously make irresponsible people responsible. And I see that a lot of these people, if they find out they're going to have to pay all this money to spay and neuter or microchip their animal and license it, they're simply going to take it out in the country and dump it out. Well, their choice of food is going to be hard to find outside the city limits, so they're going to come to town. And there'll be some of these feral animals that are running around that are owned by nobody. And I don't have a solution for that, but I just don't think that all these regulations are going to help us a whole lot. And I've read through this ordinance, which contains a lot more than spaying and neutering and microchipping. And going around town, I see that a lot of that is not enforced. But I also see lots of fees, fines, and so forth. And some of the fees, just, you know, spaying and neutering, that costs money. Your microchip costs. You have to license it every year or every 3 years, or you can get a lifetime license. But if I sat back thinking about buying a new pet or getting a new pet and had to look at all these fees that are going to be facing me, I might change my mind about owning a pet. The fact that you want to microchip and license both seems redundant. Then if, in the case of the license, if you lose the tag, you got to pay for another tag. If the microchip is so great, why don't we do away with the metal tag? I just think this ordinance needs to be scrutinized a little more and more public input put into it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
Hello. My name's Chris Juarez, and I sure hope I'm not wasting your time. There's an amendment on Chapter 3 on animal control. It's the requirements governing hoofed animals. Is this part of the same thing? Okay, because I was under the impression it was, and it's going on vote today.
No, this is dogs and cats.
Oh, just dogs and cats.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have an opinion.
Thank you, Juarez. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kristen Stanley. Good morning, Mayor Morrison
morning,
and City
ma'am.
Council. I support the proposed spay-neuter ordinance. The city of Waco adopted such an ordinance in 2012, and in 3 years, their shelter went from a euthanasia rate of 64% to less than 10%. Waco went from a shelter full of cats in 2012 to a shelter with just 3 cats in May of this year. In September, Waco recorded 0 owner surrenders. San Angelo reported 301 owner surrenders for the month of September. And Waco's shelter is not unlike San Angelo's shelter in that they take in animals from surrounding areas. A few San Angelo citizens opposed to the spay-neuter ordinance have suggested dumping will increase. Dumping is already a huge problem for our community. The economy and a transient community are the driving factors for dumping. Dory Helm, Communications Administrator for the City of Waco, stated in an email that dumping did not increase after the mandatory spay ordinance was enacted. Instead of an enforcement approach and writing citations, Waco's animal care officers work to connect citizens with resources, including low-cost spay-neuter coupons. I encourage you to read about Waco's dramatic success in the Waco Tribune. According to the National Pet Alliance, 75% of surplus cats come from breeding by stray cats. As an animal advocate, I, along with dozens of other private citizens and individuals who work with Critter Shack Rescue, devote a considerable amount of time, money, energy toward reducing, stabilizing, and caring for San Angelo's surplus cats. With the knowledge that this is a critical component to reducing the surplus of cats, thereby reducing shelter intake of cats. Only by targeting the ordinance of the surplus through spay-neuter can we win this battle. We see widespread suffering on a daily basis as a result of people's failure to spay-neuter their pets. These cats were once someone's pets or the descendants of someone's pets. It is absolutely overwhelming, and we see this on a daily basis, nightly basis. Sunday night, I picked up 2 starved kittens someone decided to stop feeding. Monday morning, I picked up a dead cat out of the road. And this morning, I grieve for Callie, a sweet dumped cat I rescued 2 years ago. She had been starved, without food and water for weeks, and riddled with shotgun pellets. Callie died this morning of breast cancer because she was not spayed when she was young. The local rescues are full. Foster homes are full. The shelter is full, putting down adoptable animals due to lack of space, and resources are scarce. Yes, this can just be another ordinance on the books, but it doesn't have to be. It has the potential to end suffering and euthanasia at taxpayer expense. It will require city leadership leading the charge, collaboration among local rescue groups, affordable spay-neuter programs and services, awareness of such programs, and education. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Michelle Zrubeck, and though I have lots of thoughts, Jennifer McCon has her thoughts very organized, so I'd like to give my public time to her.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm back. Do I say my name again?
Yeah.
Okay. You wanted to bring up old dogs. In the last couple months that I've volunteered at the shelter, I've saved 2. One could barely walk. The other one was an owner surrender. She was adopted out from the shelter, came back. We got her in a permanent home. She's doing well now. If you suggest that it's okay to euthanize an animal just because it's old, do you also think it's okay to visit the nursing home? We have many elderly in there. It doesn't mean they can't contribute, that they're not somebody's loved one, or that they couldn't be. Just because an animal isn't old doesn't mean it needs to be put down. The old retriever we saved required thyroid medication. That was it. She smiles. She's happy with her foster family. I don't think an old animal deserves to be put to death just because its owner is irresponsible. The many strays you talk about, or wild animals, they started somewhere. They're not going to become not stray. The population isn't going to change if you don't change. There's many people here who don't want this ordinance because they feel it impinges on their rights. Unfortunately, many of the laws are made for the people who aren't responsible. I told a gentleman this morning, he disagreed with the ordinance. He said it was his right and his animal, and nobody was going to tell him what to do. If you drink, We all may have a drink occasionally. We don't drive. We're responsible. It's simple. But there's still laws on that. I would hope that you're not so naive that you honestly think it is okay to euthanize an animal because it's old or because there's no room for it. Because there could be room made if there were less entering. Animals could have better handling there. There wouldn't be as many to manage. So although this is my second attempt, I'll be out there Wednesday, and I would love for you to spend time with myself and James and his staff and get a better feel for what you're against. Thanks.
Thank you. And just let me, and I wasn't going to throw this out, but you've painted a pretty desperate picture of me. I want to tell you there's cats that are thrown out in front of my house all the time because I live in a pasture on the edge of town. 3 weeks ago, I tried to save a little Siamese kitten that was been abandoned on my property. Tomorrow, I will take my 8th rabies shot because that cat bit me when I was trying to feed him and he died. So I did everything I could. I know what it means to rescue an animal and to care for an animal, and I've done it. And my 8th rabies shot is proof of what I tried to do. So I shouldn't have thrown that out, but I did. Next.
My name is Deborah Bailey, and I spoke last time, and I am against this ordinance. It is an infringement on the rights of the people. Like you, we're painted as being uncaring, hard-hearted, mean, vicious people, and we're not. Like you, I also have rescued many animals, had them spayed, neutered, paid for their shots, and found them homes. Obviously, this is very emotional for a lot of people, and I understand that. It's very emotional for me when I see an animal that's distressed or in trouble, and I do my best to help it, or if I'm not in a position to help it. Very often you can't capture an animal that is either hurt or scared, but you do what you can. I ask you once again to oppose this ordinance. Mr. Fleming and Mr. Self said this is a small thing. To me, a loss of freedom is not a small thing, nor should it be to any of the citizens in this city. And if this doesn't work, what's next? Are we going to have an application to have an animal? Ms. Grindstaff has said, if you are not a responsible pet owner, you will not be a pet owner. Is she going to have everybody fill out an application? And who decides who is responsible and who's not? And who decides who can and cannot own a pet? I lived in Houston for a while. Shortly after I moved there, I received a letter asking me about my pets. How many I had, were they spayed or neutered, what kinds were they, what sex were they? One of the questions on that questionnaire was, are you willing to take out a loan to pay for your pet's surgery or if it has a disease like cancer? If the answer to that question is no, I'm not willing to go in debt, does that make me irresponsible? Where does this end? Now, like I said, I realize this is very emotional for a lot of people. 2 people have cited cities that have had this ordinance that have worked out well. I went through and I did a lot of research, and I found for every city you find that it works well, you find a city where it doesn't, where it didn't work at all. So I chose not to pick out one of the cities where it didn't work and bring those statistics to you. But I will tell you, of the national organizations that promote animal welfare, the ASPC, the Allies, the American Veteran Medical Association, the No Kill Advocacy Center, the Pet Connection, both the American College on Theragenologists and the Society for Theragenology, which are 2 of the groups of veterinarian specialists who specialize in spay and neutering, the Anti-Cruelty Society, the National Animal Interest Alliance, and the American Kennel Club are all opposed to this because they know in the long run it doesn't work everywhere. It is a violation of our rights as owners. I'm very glad to hear that San Angelo is looking at doing a low-cost spay and neuter because there has not been anything here like that. The spay and neuter program that's through PAWS is very cumbersome. It's not user-friendly, and it's very limited. So the city does need to look at doing something different. And I agree that if we had one through the city that was low cost, and again, I agree very much with spay and neutering, but I don't believe that the city should be passing an ordinance that I don't feel, first of all, is enforceable, and I don't believe that the city should be passing an ordinance that is, again, against the rights of the private property owner. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kim Spooner. I wasn't planning to speak today, but I volunteer for Help Me Get Home. It's a website that helps San Angelo pets get lost pets found, and I see every day dogs that are posted without, they're not neutered, they're not spayed, they don't have tags. People brought up tags about the expense. There's a place in town you can get tags made for $5. Big Lots. I bought collars at Big Lots for $1. There's a vet in town who will microchip for $20, and the shelter will microchip for $13. Those are very, very affordable. You could get your dog properly ID'd for less than $30. So this cost, I don't know how much is too much. Concha Valley Paws will spay and neuter pit bulls and chihuahuas for free. They also have reduced cost for spay and neuter based on income. I know 2 people that have had their dogs located at the shelter this last week, and they decided they didn't want them, and they were there. I can tell you which kennel numbers they're in. They decided, nah, my life is easier without them, and they left them there, and neither one of them are spayed. Most likely those dogs will die. That breaks my heart. We have a problem in this community. I see people abandoning their dogs, puppies found on the airport road in a box. Jillian rescued 2 puppies that were seen just discarded, and a car drove away. A German Shepherd puppy was found at the lake yesterday. I can guarantee that puppy doesn't have an owner. People are breeding their dogs and they can't sell them, and they're discarding them. This is a problem in our town, and I'm sure our shelter staff can echo that. They euthanize puppies in our shelter. Puppies. Puppies sit there day after day after day. Nobody wants them. So it's not just old dogs, it's not sick dogs, they're healthy, beautiful dogs that get euthanized in our shelter. I see people posting dogs every day. I can't keep this dog, I don't know what to do with it. I don't have a solution for them. My solution would be, I'd like to tell them, take them to the shelter, but I know that they face a 50% or more euthanasia rate. Our community has a problem and we need to address it. And the first place to address it is to have spay and neuter laws that prevent these unnecessary amounts of puppies and kittens that are contributing to our overpopulation. It's heartbreaking, and I do suggest, go volunteer. We used to walk at the shelter. Go volunteer. Go look. There's puppies, or there are puppies on the shelter webpage right now, and there's also female dogs that are full of milk, that they have pictures. Nobody's going to adopt them. They're going to die. They're going to die. So something does need to be done with the spay and neuter ordinance. It's responsibility on our part for pet owners, but there does need to be laws, because I'm sure it's not an easy task to pick 20 dogs a day and say, you're up. I'm sure it's a very painful thing for the shelter staff to euthanize these dogs. I'm sure they'd rather euthanize 10% who are aggressive than 60% who are perfect pets that would, if they only had a chance to be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Morning, Jenny.
Good morning, I'm Jenny Wilson with Concha Valley Paws, and I've been before you each time that this topic's been discussed, and I've told you how I feel. So I don't feel the need to reiterate a lot of that. I do want to say that I've agreed with all the people who have stood up here in support of this today. I do want to tell you a couple of things that have happened recently with our rescue. PAWS took in recently a AKC registered lab that the owners were surrendering at the shelter while we were there doing our pull. This lab had developed a blood cyst that burst. And instead of getting the animal the vet care it needed, that family decided to dump that animal at the shelter because he was no longer making them money as a breeding dog. We took that dog into our program. We've got him neutered. We've got him in a loving home. In the last 45 days, we've taken in 6 mama dogs and their puppies from the shelter. That's just what PAWS has done. I can't speak to what the other rescues have taken. So you have a huge problem of pregnant or just recently delivering mamas at the shelter, and they are being euthanized if rescues can't take them. It's just the sad fact of what's happening out there. I have to commend the current staff and the changes they've made. The fact that they're out in the community doing adoptions is amazing, and I have to commend that, but we are not going to adopt our way out of this. Something has to be done to address the number of animals that are taken in each day. And the only way I know how to do that is to reduce the number that are born through spay and neuter practices. There are multiple studies showing that these ordinances work and they're beneficial. And then there are some communities that respond to incentives and education. After being with PAWS for 7 years and providing free spay and neuter vouchers to owners of pit bulls and chihuahuas, and the reason we target that group is because that is the most commonly euthanized breed in our area. We've not sold out of those. I thought we would have exhausted that fund after just 6 months. We still have vouchers available. Education works in some communities. In some communities, you need to help legislate it. I have to say that I do believe there is an element of education to an ordinance. Maybe people don't realize there is a problem. Maybe this will help them understand that spaying and neutering is not only beneficial to the animal, but it's beneficial to the community. There are many, many, many laws on the books that protect innocence, and that's what this is. We are not, like Jennifer pointed out, we're not allowed to drink and drive. Is that not an infringement upon my right? It's my car, it's my body, I'm drinking, but we can't do that. There's laws to how we can treat our children, how we can discipline them. There are laws in place that protect the innocent, and I just really think you need to consider this. I pray that you will pass it. We're in a desperate situation in this town. The rescues are at capacity. We're adopting out as many as we can. It's time for the community to step up and start being responsible. And if you have to make some kind of legislation happen to make that occur, then so be it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Linda Marcelli, and I'm on the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. And Jim Turner is right. This was never brought before our committee. And he's wrong in that it had to be. It did not. It would have been a courtesy, because we do have more insight, I think, than some of the council members might. And we could have provided some advice. I am not 100% behind this ordinance, but I have been convinced that I should support it, and I would like to convince you of that also, Mr. Mayor. The changes that have been effected at the shelter by James Flores and Bob Salas are phenomenal, and if they assure me that this ordinance will be enforced, because we have a problem with enforcing our animal ordinances, and part of that is because City Council doesn't send the funds and the personnel that they need. You passed an ordinance recently about cat colonies in this town. Do any of you know what percentage of that ordinance has been complied with? Any of you? It's 0. So there's another ordinance. We have an ordinance already about breeders' permits, but that's not complied with either. So the thing is that you need to make sure that this ordinance is enforced. And someone came up here and said something about old dogs, that a spay-neuter is not going to change the euthanization of an old dog. It's not going to change the feral cat problem in this town either, because who's going to spay-neuter those animals when no one owns them? So Anyway, I am not 100% sold on this, but I urge you to pass this ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mo Sapezi. My son Daniel Sapezi last year did a Make a Difference Day project that was in support of the animal shelter. And this year he is again doing another project in support of the animal shelter. So my son's involvement with the shelter has really gotten me to get involved as well. And I have been so excited about the changes that have occurred at our shelter as of late. I believe that right now we have the right people in place, we have the desire, and we have the momentum to create a shelter that we not only tolerate, but a shelter that this city can be very proud of. I believe that spay and neuter is fundamental in continuing to make this push forward. Without it, I believe we will continue to fight an uphill battle, with the biggest losers being our beloved pets. So I ask you to please, please vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Bill.
Bill Lockett here. As Turner said, last 20 years, he heard this about 20 years ago. But, and nothing was done. It wasn't passed then, etc. So, obviously, we still have the problem. Now, catch and kill does not work. I've mentioned this before. The catching and killing these animals has never worked anywhere in the nation. And it hasn't worked here. And it won't. So all the people that's come up here today, I haven't heard them give one solution to this problem. Offer you another solution other than this. So I think we should try this. It has worked in other places, as it was pointed out. Some people are against this in some cities, some aren't. In other cities, it's worked in some, maybe it hasn't worked in others. But it's worth a try. We've got to do something. This city has to do something. And you need to understand that from what the reports that you've been given. I suggest that you approve this ordinance and let's give it a try. Now, if the ordinance is approved, some other ordinance, it will affect other sections of ordinances that will have to be changed after you approve it. And if this microchip is replacing, as I understand, going to replace our tags, that was mentioned, then we can get rid of the tags, and of course our ordinance have to be amended accordingly. Now, I suggest that changes to the required by this ordinance be approved today for the other ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, Art.
I'm Art Elkins. Good morning to all y'all. I think everything has been covered, but there's a couple things that I want to bring up. And one is about the ordinance itself. This is an ordinance that cannot and will not be enforced. There's other ordinances on the books now that can't be enforced. And my main concern is the requirement of neighbors squealing on neighbors. That's not good, folks. If the code enforcement can't enforce it, then hire more people if need be. Don't depend on neighbors squealing on neighbors. it was brought up about the tags and the microchips. That's a duplication. So that needs to be looked at. And one lady brought up about the number of pets that are adopted. I would like to know how many pets that are adopted are brought back to the shelter or thrown out on the street. Like I said, the ordinance can't be enforced. It's a waste of effort, and as far as I'm concerned, the ordinance itself should be either you guys table this and bring it up at a later date, or file 13, the ordinance, and start all over again. There's so many flaws in it that I don't see how you could pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art. Next.
Hi, my name is Jillian Haddad again.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I am in support of this ordinance and very vocally in support, and I am really proud of everybody that's spoken today. They've all done a really good job of hammering in the statistics and everything. And there's a couple things I wanted to tell you. There's a story. Yesterday, Jennifer found a husky that was unneutered. That, you know, unaltered pets have a tendency to want to roam because they're out looking for mates. So we typically will find unaltered pets, usually. So I would say 90% of the pets that I find, or somebody calls me and says I found, is unaltered. So yesterday she found a husky and she called me and said, can you come check? And I have a microchip scanner, so I scanned him and nothing. So we posted him on all the sites like we do, and we have a really great network of tens of people, I would say hundreds of people, that share these dogs, and we found the owner. And I met with him last night and we talked, and I said, well, why haven't you neutered him yet? You know, he's a good-looking dog. He's going to get snapped up on the street, and he's going to get taken to somebody's pit bull, and they're going to sell pit skis on Craigslist too, San Angelo, for $150. Because last week I saw a bunch of pit skis for $150. I can literally go and buy any breed mix that I want on these open websites. So these unaltered pets are getting snatched up and litters are made. So I asked him, I said, well, why haven't you neutered your pet yet? And he said, well, I can't afford it and it's not a priority. And then his brother said, well, you know, it's about to be a law. And he's like, oh, really? And I said, well, tomorrow's phase 2 of the ordinance to hopefully get passed through. And he said, well, dang, then I ought to do it. I said, well, how about I keep your dog tonight for a sleepover, and I'll deliver him tomorrow for a neuter, because I have a neuter set up for a different dog, and I can just switch it out and I'll take him instead. And he said, great. So this morning, Max is getting neutered. So there won't be any pit skis next week. There you go.
Thank you.
So I'm supporting the ordinance.
Anyone else? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Gaspar, and I'm a newly resident in San Angelo. I've been here for a year. Came from Dallas. And I'm a responsible owner. I've been owning my breed for 14 years. Of the 14 years, I've only bred my dogs once. Sorry. And now that with this ordinance that's coming up, I'm a responsible owner. I mean, when my females come in heat, I know when they're going to come in heat. I contain them. I don't have them with my male. I mean, because these are my dogs. These are my babies. And I'm not, like I said, from the 14 years that I've owned this breed, I have only bred once. And these puppies went to show homes. I have UKC registered dogs. But I don't feel that now because of this ordinance, me being a responsible owner, I got to go and spay and neuter my dogs. That's just with all these fees and stuff. I mean, just to even breed. I mean, I don't go and just say, okay, I'm going to breed these two. I mean, you got to do the health testing. You have the OFA on the hips, on the heart, and the elbows, everything. And so, I mean, it's just another fee of that it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I know this is not a solution or anything, but as me coming, saying that I'm just a responsible owner, and with this ordinance, I'm the one who's going to fall in, and start paying these fees because I'm being responsible. And I know there's, you know, a lot of people out there that's irresponsible, but I'm just talking about myself as being a responsible owner. And that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I just highly beg and plead with you to not pass this ordinance. It needs more research. Like some have said, there's too many loose ends. I realize there's a problem with nobody wants to see animals just killed and, you know, for no reason at all. But it's also a slippery, slidey slope to just more control, and I don't think that our animals deserve that kind of treatment. To have to be forced, neutered, and all of the taxes and all of the tentacles involved with that, because to pass this ordinance, there needs to be end solutions, and I don't see anybody seeing what the end result's going to be. I don't think we should just pass something just to see how it works. I think we need to research and see how it works and then go from there. So I just beg and plead with you, more taxes, more control is not going to save animals. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I do have one announcement that Brian has just brought forth. We will have to break because we have a conference call with an attorney at 10:30. It's an executive call on dealing with our executive minutes or our executive meeting. So at about 10:25, regardless of where we are in this discussion, we must break because there's an attorney that's supposed to call us with a conference call at 10:30. So we'll keep taking comments, but at about 10:20 to 10:25, we are going to call a halt and go make the conference call, and then we'll come back and finish it. Yes, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Jones. As most of these people in this room have stated, they're responsible pet owners. I also am one. I am not against this ordinance. If I have to be the first one to stand in line to spay my dog to get this ordinance passed, I will do that. She is 7. I've bred her one time. I know where all the puppies are. I volunteer at Paws. I see the puppies and the kittens that come through the shelter that, if it wasn't for these rescues, would be put to sleep because there is not enough people stepping up and taking responsibility and helping out to spay and neuter these dogs that they find out they're pregnant. They throw them out on the side of the road thinking, hey, Joe Smith is going to pick up this dog and take care of it because it's pregnant. But instead, those babies end up at that shelter, and they are put to sleep, not because they want to, but there is not a choice. And it's sad that people are against this because they're scared that the city is going to make them spay and neuter their pets. I'm not against it, and I hope that y'all will consider it and pass it for the safety and the well-being of all these pets that are being bred by a male dog that jumps his fence because 4 houses down, there's a dog in heat that's running the streets. It's happened. And the male owners, he's not going to step up and say, okay, well, my dog got this other dog pregnant, I'm going to pay puppy support. They don't do that. Not my dog, I'm not taking care of it. It happens every day in every community. And we need to step up and support this ordinance for the health of these dogs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Welcome, sir.
My name is Michael Bailey. I didn't come here today with the intention of addressing the council or the public, but I feel compelled to say that I don't believe this ordinance will be effective in legislating responsibility of people. I hear that a lot today about responsibility and responsible owners, and I'm a pet keeper. I'm not an owner. They own me. I'm all for spay and neuter. I believe it's the best thing that you can do for an animal for all the reasons that have been cited by these people here today. However, I think if we pass the ordinance now as it is, we're getting the cart before the horse. You know, this council and this city, I moved back to San Angelo by choice about 4 years ago, and I have seen that the council always seems to come up with money to fund their priorities. You know, we can beautify the river, we can build a nice bicycle path to nowhere, we can, and you know, on your consent agenda, we have funded the Performing Arts Coalition. That's fine, that's great. But if this is a priority of the city and of the citizens, then I suggest that you reallocate some of the money that you have now, some of our money. Reallocate that money and build a zero cost or very low cost spay and neuter program before we start going and legislating and mandating that people comply. It's not going to work. This is merely just a vehicle to charge fees and to make responsible pet keepers carry the burden, carry the water for the people who aren't responsible. I loathe that the animals of the kill rate in the shelters. I hate it. My wife and I pay for spaying and neutering of animals, and we see to find them homes when we can. But the solution is not to legislate, attempt to legislate responsibility. And I just think y'all need to think about this, reallocate some money to come up with a useful and workable spay and neuter program before we go ahead with this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello. My name is Christina McKeska, and I wasn't planning on coming up here, but I just want to say I agree with the ordinance. I feel like if I got to speaking, my pregnancy hormones might get the best of me, so I just want to say that I agree.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got about 3 or 4 or 5 more minutes. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Searcy, and I, too, was not planning on addressing the council, but I feel that is a conviction just based on the time that I've spent in San Angelo, the time that I've invested in researching this topic, and the time that I've invested in volunteering with different areas of rescue, and as a responsible pet owner. I grew up on a ranch where animals were dumped. My parents were good enough to teach me a respect for animals as God's creatures and a gift to us. And I support this ordinance as a tool and a message to send to San Angelo to say, wake up, and the way that we care for our animals in San Angelo is a direct reflection of our city. And so I support this ordinance as a tool to work with the rescue community, to give ammunition to the city to be able to enforce something that desperately needs to take place. And that is responsible pet ownership, and that is spay and neuter, and that is a better San Angelo. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Got a couple of minutes left. If anybody wants to make public comment, this is your chance. I may not agree with what you say, but I'll fight all day long to give you the opportunity to say it. So if you've got anything else that you want to say, if there is any further public comment, pro or con, this is your time, because I'm just about to call an end to public comment, and we're going to go up and listen to a conference call. Last call. Anybody else wants to talk? This is your last opportunity before we make a decision on this. What is the article that we are dealing with?
Are you going to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'll close the public. I need to know so that I can read it before we go into executive.
Are we going to come back and have council?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
My name's Sydney Stickney. I have really no intention of talking either. This is an important ordinance. I deal with animals on a daily basis. Most of these women and men in the back deal with them on a daily basis. I pay vet bills for some of the rescues just because it's important. I don't hand that back to those rescues. I don't require them to pay me back. I want to find good homes for these animals. And I want the ones that take these animals to be responsible with them. If it takes Linda Marcelli to change her mind, that's a major step in the right direction. James and his group, they need our support. Whether we see eye to eye at times, no. But can we see eye to eye on this? Yes. And this town deserves for each one of you to consider going in the next direction. Because where we are right now, we're at a loss. The rescues are full, homes are full, hearts are broken.
It is 10:21. One last, got about a minute left. Anybody else wants to comment? This is the last call. Last call if you want to talk. Public comment is now over. Which item do I need to read for executive that we have to go consider right now?
I think we could go ahead and just go for executive because some of the other ones are going to be here. Some of the other special guests for executive is going to be here too.
So I do not need to read anything specifically to take us into...
Which executive session item? What does he have to read to take us into executive?
You want me to read all of the executive and take us in? Well, we're not going to do...
The phone call, who were already here waiting for executive session.
We're not going to do all of executive. No. Now, are we just going to do the one issue with the phone call?
That's up to you,
Yes.
Yeah. So do I need to read all of it or just the one?
No, if we're just going to take that one, you can just read Marta for Hirschfield.
Okay. We are going into executive to consider and to speak with an attorney on Marta for Hirschfield Energy Systems, LLC, ETAL. And we are now at 10:23. We are going into executive to discuss this. I am recusing myself from this item, so y'all will be going into executive. When you get back, we'll take this up where we left it off. It is 10:23. We're going into executive.
And it's probably going to be what, less than 30 minutes?
Oh, yes.
15 minutes or so, and we'll come back. We'll have discussion from the council.
Very well. We'll just call this our break then. I'm calling this meeting back to order. And I apologize for breaking in the middle of our discussion. It was not our intent, but when you got a lawyer on retainer and he says, take our call now, or I'm going to just keep the motor running, we took his call. So I apologize for that. We will now get back to our discussion on the spay and neuter program. We have taken public comment. I trust that everyone has had their say. Whether we agree or disagree, I want you to be able to talk. So we have had the public comment. I believe we know how everybody feels. We'll now talk between ourselves with the council, and I will take comments from each and every council member and let them give their thoughts and their feelings on this. I will conclude with my thoughts, and then we will take a vote. Start with you, Elizabeth.
I think that when I became interested in this, it was because I had residents in my neighborhood that were dealing with a lot of unwanted cats, which we still know to be the case in and around our community. And then through the budget process, you begin to see how much money we're spending at the shelter, which I believe also to be to euthanize perfectly healthy pets that many of our citizens have not taken care of. And even though I find that heartbreaking, I also find it fiscally, irresponsible and something that not the rest of the responsible citizens should have to bear. And to see this cost grow and grow proves that whatever we're doing is not working. So we can talk about what the community did 20 years ago or what the community tried to do 5 years ago, and quite frankly, I don't care. I wasn't on the council then, and I didn't have the same voice that I have now. And so my job here, I believe, is to to listen to new ideas, to look for best practices, and to try to move this community forward. In doing that, I think we also recognize that others in the community have a different philosophy about how that should happen, and I completely respect that. It would be great if we were all responsible and took care of our pets, and perhaps took care of all the neighborhood pets too, if we're going to be that responsible. But that's not the world that we live in. And so I am very happy to support the idea of changing our status quo. And I realize that the ordinance may not be perceived to be perfect, but it is a good start in the right direction. So I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater or the puppy out with the bathwater and say that we need to put this on hold. That's what is always said when someone wants to derail something. And I don't want to do that. I would rather get an ordinance passed and we modify it going forward as we live with it. I'm not afraid of making local ordinances that I believe work for our community. I'm not here to promote ideas about the federal government or the state government, but instead local government and what we need to live in a responsible, respectful, comfortable community. So I think you know how I feel, Mayor. I think I've been pretty consistent. One thing that I do believe that is important through all of this is that perhaps on a next agenda, we talk about the low-cost spay-neuter program, what is expected out of the new veterinarian that you have on staff or will have on staff, and have that as an immediate follow-up to this, because like many speakers, I think that having this ordinance without a low or no cost spay neuters is pointless. So I'm very interested in following up with that and making sure that program is implemented immediately as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Lucy?
I just want to say that I had gone to the shelter. I had visited with James, and I was very impressed, James. You have brought that shelter up to something that I hadn't seen before. You have it very organized. You have it very clean. You are on fire. You have this motivation that you want to conquer the world right now. I applaud you for that. I think that you're wanting to do more than anyone has ever wanted to do anything there before. Because when I checked into it, we were like, I believe that there was only 300 animal control cases that were brought before the municipal court in 2 years. So, in a city this size, that's not a lot. So now it's your chance, and I'm telling you, I am for this ordinance. Here's the thing, like a lot of people have said, in order for it to work, you're going to have to enforce it. And that goes for anything. There's got to be consequences to people's actions, or this is just going to continue. And I think that that's why we're in the situation that we're in. Nobody has ever done anything. You do something and they're going to forget it. Nobody's going to do anything to you. So I believe that if we start this off at that right after the 6 months, you get your people out there, you say, hey, we have to enforce this. This is going to work. And for the people that are constantly saying, no, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, you don't know that. We don't know that. We're not going to know that it's not going to work until we try. So for that reason, I will be approving it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. John?
I first want to thank all the folks that came out here, all these animal lovers. We're all animal lovers, but I appreciate you folks taking the time to come out here to make even my decision, my volunteer position decision, an even easier one. I missed out on that first session, and I heard it was pretty contentious. I heard it was very spirited. But I'm taken aback at the numbers, the monthly intake numbers that you're getting out there, James, and it just kind of blows my mind. I don't want to, and I hope some folks have painted this as a gloom and doom type of city when it comes to animal rescue or animal euthanization, and I hope San Angelo is not alone. I hope that it. I mean, I don't want it, but I'm sure it happens everywhere else. I think again, the numbers are really mind-boggling. The enforcement, like Lucy says, the enforcement is going to be so critical. I mean, I hope that we can have more teeth in this enforcement if it passes than we do the garage sale signs enforcement. It really needs to, if we're going to try this, it really has to have teeth in it. There are, I believe, a large number of irresponsible dog owners out there, dog owners, and that's sad because now we're left to try to turn that thing around. I wish I would have heard some information or some comment from some of your workers out there. I wish somebody would have said, "Hey, this is what we're dealing with on a daily basis." I understand we hired a vet. That's awesome. The low-cost program. We have to have a very strong public education program. You've got to sell it. You've got to get the word out. And I'm sure it's happened along the way, but I think that's going to be very critical. I've got I'm looking at my notes here. It's hard either way. I understand some people feel that their rights are taken away, but I think something has to be done. It didn't happen 20 years ago, like Elizabeth said, 5 years ago. It didn't happen. It's not happening. We have to go in that direction. So having said all that, I'm comfortable with the way I'm going to vote. And if we can make this a viable, strong program for us all, for the benefit of even those animals. It's almost like we have a small little concentration camp out there, which is sad, and it's because of those folks that don't care about those animals. They dump them on the highways, they dump them in the streets, and just don't care. That's very irresponsible. So I want something that's going to turn it around and help the animals that don't have a voice, and I hope those animals do have somewhat of a right to live. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Marty?
I received a lot of phone calls, and I guess I have a question, James. The microchipping, the majority of the calls that I got that were, I'll just leave it at the majority of the calls I got. The microchipping, I guess, is the biggest problem they had.
Okay.
Because it deters people from bringing in animals that just off the street. If they pick up a stray animal and they want to bring it in and have it spayed or neutered, they also have to pay for the microchipping, correct?
Correct. Currently, we have the city tag, obviously, as everybody knows. And the microchip, our goal is to phase out the city tag and replace the reason behind the tag with the microchip. So there would be, yes, it's $6 more than a city tag technically, but from the standpoint of a shelter and the reasoning behind the tag, I think it offsets the monetary difference of the tag versus microchip. We were looking at more of a customer service approach with the microchip.
If it's a stray animal, how would we register it? And I guess I'm asking the same one.
Okay, a bona fide stray, does he want to keep it or does he just want to turn it into the shelter?
Well, I guess that if they wanted to keep it, they'd register it to them.
Well, there is a legal that has to expire. There's various situations. We have to hold to make sure that if somebody does pick up a stray, it enters the shelters. We hold it for a certain amount of time to give the potential owner an opportunity to get his animal back. There's other holds for various reasons, but once the hold is expired on the animal, anybody has the opportunity to adopt that, and a citizen adoption trumps a rescue adoption. So if that person wanted it back 3 days later, 10 days later, whatever the hold is, it has to be expired upon on the dog. At that point, they would have the adoption fees, which would include the microchip. But to bring us a dog that they found on the streets, no, sir, they can dump the dog on us anytime they want.
Okay. I guess my concern is the microchipping and the additional $6. Other than that, I think we've got a fair program moving forward. I won't say it's great, but I guess I'll be careful with my words because I use small, and I don't think we're dealing with small. I think we're dealing with very large numbers of animals that are having to be euthanized, so.
Well, again, just to reiterate, you know, and I think I heard this once or twice, Johnny said it pretty firmly. I think it's going to be my job and our job as a city to sell our new process, and our new process I think is going to compensate for that $6 difference. And I'll give you an example. A basic rabies shot somewhere is $25, $35, maybe $40. It's a $5 excursion at my shelter. So I think the person that is having problems with $6 is going to find our services, so being they qualify for that service, which they would if they're worried about $6. Typically that person's probably going to qualify for our service. It's going to be a moot point because they're going to save more money coming to our shelter for basic inoculations and or registration up to spay and neuter. So again, I think you know, depending on how this goes, whether it goes or not, the sell point from this point forward for me is going to be, let's get a program in place for the citizens of San Angelo to spay and neuter. I mean, as it sits now, you can adopt for me for $85, and so many citizens don't know that. That is a fully vetted animal. You do not have to spend more than $85, and many a times we have $30 specials, $20 specials, $10 specials. City management has given us the authority to kind of do that at will based off of some time of the animal being there, the age, the condition, you know, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the message of $85 has not been sent by us in a really good form and fashion, because so many people still don't know you can get a spayed, neutered, completely inoculated vet dog out of the shelter for $85.
Okay. All right.
Rodney?
First off, I'd just like to thank all the rescue groups and individuals that we do have in the city, and I thank God that we do have them. Otherwise, the rate of euthanasia would be way, way higher than what it is at this time. I do want to thank James out there. I think he's doing an awesome job. And, you know, when we talk about taking away people's rights, and I do see that this is taking away some rights, but it also comes back to the, you know, the argument about drinking and driving and having to put those laws to enforcement to protect other people. The biggest losers in this whole situation is all the pets that are euthanized each month. We have hundreds and hundreds of them that have to be put down each month. The second biggest loser, though, is the taxpayers of the city that are having to take care of all these animals. Jim said it earlier perfectly. We've tried the same thing over and over for 20 plus years, and it ain't working. It ain't working. So, like Ms. Grindstaff said, we need to try something different. And this is something different. If this doesn't work in 3 or 4 years, I would think we'd have to give it some time to try to vet it out. But if it isn't working, then we'll come back. I think that we should come back and we should try something different. But at this time, this is the best option of what has been put before me, and I believe what has been put before most of the council members. I think that this is something that we should try. This is something I care very, very much about, and I am going to be voting for this.
Well, I know when I'm whipped, and I can hear what people are saying, but I have an obligation to the citizens of this city to explain my point on this, and I will explain it. It's going to take me a little while, so I beg your indulgence. I want to start off by saying that if an animal is picked up that is running loose, I have zero problem with us mandating an ordinance that they be microchipped, that they be vaccinated, and that they be spayed or neutered. I have not one problem with that. And when someone adopts these animals from the pound, then they need to pay for the cost of this. I have zero problem with that. I think it ought to be law if an animal is found running loose. I also have all for low-cost spay-neuter programs. I think they ought to be instituted. But Liz made a whole lot of my argument for me when she said that she was not on the council 4 to 5 years ago, and she is not responsible for their decisions, but she is responsible now. About 4 to 5, 6 years ago, animal control came to us. Charlotte was on the council, I was on the council, I believe it was even before Johnny was on the council, or it was right at the time. And they said, we've got $45 to adopt these animals out. We've got to have more money. So we doubled it to $85 on a dog, and I think we went to $65 on a cat. They said we are killing too many animals. Euthanization rates are too high. So we want to double what we're charging so that we can solve the problem. Obviously, the problem was not solved. That is a decision that was made by 5 members of this council that wasn't even here. But yet we're still living with the results. Ordinances are not made for today. When we understand the intent and we understand why, it's made for 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 years down the road. And there's ordinances that are on our books today that have been here since we adopted the charter in 1915. You don't just take an ordinance off when they have a life of their own. I want you to read, and I'm going to read this to you. If you've not read this ordinance and read the mandates in this ordinance, this comes from 301.011C, and it's talked under violations. In the event any person owns, possesses, exhibits, or harbors a prohibited animal, and if we pass this ordinance, one that is not spayed, neutered, microchipped, is a prohibited animal, then any designated officer or agent employed by the city may immediately take such animal and impound it and issue a summons for such person to appear to municipal court to answer charges. After reasonable notice, the city, by its designated agent, may remove the prohibited animal from the city or dispose of the animal. That is giving people the rights, that's giving animal control people the right by ordinance to walk in your yard, take and seize your animal, dispose of this animal, impose your animal, and you got no choice except to pay a $500 fine per animal. There were wars fought. Men have died to protect the rights that we have in our Bill of Rights, that we have the right to our property and we have the right to our possessions. And this flies completely in the face of the basic rights that we have as citizens. Article 302.011A makes it illegal, unlawful to sell, exchange, or barter an animal in the city of San Angelo. That means I can't sell my animal. If I have an animal that's worth $200, I cannot sell legally that animal in the city of San Angelo. I can give it away, but people have a litter of pups that are worth $200 a piece. It is illogical to think that they're going to give those pups away. What they're going to do is go outside the city in the city limits, or they're going to sell a collar for $1. They're going to take a $1 collar and sell it for $200. They give you a choice of a dog. All you're doing is driving it underground. You're making a black market. You're making people that are responsible citizens of our city, you're making them lawbreakers. You're taking away their rights. It's just like prohibition that we tried back in the early part of the century, where we prohibited liquor. It did not work. It drove it underground. It made a black market. We're doing the exact same thing with these animals when we say you cannot sell an animal in the city of San Angelo. You're making a black market. That is wrong. 301.012 says that spay or neuter is required on all unaltered dogs and cats. I love my animals, but my animals are not people. They are my possessions. I have the right to do with my animal what I want to do with my animal. I have the right to sell my animal if I so choose. And the Constitution gives me the right of property and possession without the threat of unlawful seizures. Again, 304.001, it mentions again, illegal to sell, exchange, or barter an animal. This is a terrible law. This is a terrible law. It is not fair. It is not enforceable, and it takes away honest rights that citizens have, everyday rights. It forces people to go underground. It deprives responsible citizens of freedom to sell their property, and it does absolutely nothing to protect the animal. Research shows that it increases euthanization, because if people have 6 or 8 animals and all of a sudden we pass a law that tells them it's going to cost them $500 a piece if they're caught, they're going to dump those animals. They're going to dump them on the shelters, they're going to dump them in front of the shelters, or they're going to take them in the country and dump them on people. That's what happens, and it's been proven, the research, it proves that it increases euthanization and it increases the dumping of animals. Fort Worth passed this, and their vaccination rates plummeted. People quit vaccinating their animals because they did not want to go with the authorities and have their animals vaccinated, because people would then know that they had an animal. Vaccination rates plummeted. Because of the vaccination rates plummeting and the fear of rabies, Fort Worth rescinded this law after they passed it because it did not work. But I think the most serious thing about this is it gives your neighbor A that gets mad at neighbor B, the right to call anonymously animal control and say, neighbor B has 7 animals over here and none of them are chipped, and that animal control, as James said, he's going to do it as they call. They get to go to your house, into your yard, and they get to seize your animals. They get to impound your animals, and you either pay the fine or they dispose of your animals. This is un-American. That's about as close as I can get. An ordinance is for tomorrow. It is not for today. As it has been said, it's opposed by the American Kennel Club. This spay-neuter mandate, it's opposed by the American Kennel Club. This is a group that knows. It's opposed by the American Veterinarian Medical Association. It's opposed by the National Animal Interest Alliance. It's opposed by the American Society for Prevention of Cruelty. It's opposed by the Alley Cat Allies because this has already been tried. It has been proved that it would not work. It discriminates against the poor. This was proven in Kansas City. It discriminates against people that do not have the money to neuter and spay. It discriminates against people where they were actually sending animal control officers into the neighborhoods and confiscating animals and writing citations. This is an issue that needs to be decided logically and intelligently and not emotionally. And I understand the emotion, and I understand how people feel about their animals. I'm taking the 8th rabies shot because I was trying to save a pretty little Siamese kitten that had been abandoned in front of my house. State of the Division wrote in their blog article this morning that this was not taken before the Animal Control Board to be fully vetted. Don Barnett wrote an email to Charlotte, and he says, I am not happy with this ordinance as it stands. This is not good law. And this is law that will live from now on, because in 4 or 5 years, it'll be just like the $85 4 or 5 years ago. There's 2 of us still on this council that had anything to do with it. And in 5 years' time, you're going to see an entirely different group up here. You may see an entirely different group in administration. You will probably see an entirely different group in animal control because it's entirely different than it was 5 years ago. But this ordinance is still alive, and people are still subjected to penalties for owning an animal. This is wrong. It is always going to be wrong. And if it's a 5-to-1 vote, which I feel it surely will be, I stand opposed to this because it's taking away the rights to our citizens.
Rebuttal?
Go ahead.
All right, I don't usually say a whole lot, but obviously you've thought this through.
Yes, sir.
So obviously you have a solution to the problem for all the animals we're putting down.
I think we ought to, even James said that he's having to take these $85 animals out on the streets and sell them for $30. There's your biggest problem right there. We have priced it so high that people will not adopt an animal because it is cost prohibitive and people can't afford it. Get these adoption fees down there to $25 or $30 where people can afford them. Get a low-cost spay-neuter program that is available, and let's work it as a city. If we're spending all of this money, and I do not accept your $71 a day for a dog and a cat each in our animal shelter. I can't accept that. But even if it is $5,
yes, I am.
Let's spend the money different. And let's do slow-cost spay, neuter, and microchip, but let people do it on their own, not mandated. What else?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure Marty got to finish his
Well,
thought.
I am for a second because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, and I'm fixing to. So, but no, I do. Obviously, you checked with Fort Worth. Did you check with Arlington?
No, I've read this. I got it online. I got it off the internet, so I know it's true.
Right.
Fort Worth.
Like the one lady that spoke, I think you can find for every one city that didn't work, one city it did. I checked with Arlington, and Arlington, I didn't check with their animal control people, but I checked with part of their staff, and they have one, and they're very happy with it, and they claim animals that euthanasia is going down because they implemented it. So I think because Fort Worth, it didn't work in Fort Worth, I don't think necessarily it won't work everywhere, you know. I think we'll find it'll work for one city where it won't work for another city.
Rodney?
Well, one thing about the rate on the adoption rate, I don't think it should be lowered. If you can't afford what the rate is now, then you probably shouldn't be able to afford a pet. A pet is, you know, I know how much I spend on I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and I spend a lot of money on my pets. And, you know, I am responsible for that. And I know, like, if a surgery comes up or something like that, I would spend that money on them because they're part of my family. But if you can't afford the $85, I mean, you shouldn't be buying a pet. I don't think those rates should go down at all. If anything, they almost should go up.
Right. Well, and I'd like to kind of clarify that issue. Mr. Weiss could probably expand upon, because he was part of that when they came up to ask for more money. I don't think it was the shelter staff necessarily asking for more money. I think it was the contractual agreements that we had with the veterinarian world that raised their prices. And I can tell you today that $85 that we charge to the citizen, 65 of that goes to a veterinarian's office.
Yeah.
The $50 that we charge for the cat, 45 of that goes to a veterinarian's office. So as a city, we're losing, which is why I've done the $30 dogs. We're losing already. And if somebody's standing there, but there is a big consensus about that belief. If you can't afford 85, you probably shouldn't be a pet owner. But that's not for me to decide. I just wanted to clarify the numbers, and I will let you know those numbers are going to go up again here shortly, because veterinarians have already sent out letters to people letting them know that it's not going to be 65 anymore. It's going to be a whole lot more, and it will jump over the $100 mark. So I will be back asking for more money. Because to spay and neuter, you know, so being we don't get the veterinarian, but I'm confident that we will get the veterinarian on staff. But that's where you know, of that $85, 65 goes to the veterinarian's office, not to the city of San Angelo.
When
so
will
you
we
still
know?
got rabies, you got DHP, you got parvo, you got wormer. It adds up.
When will we know if we're having that vet on staff?
Today.
Today?
Yeah,
really?
we kind of just been working a plan out.
Okay.
Luckily, it's worked for him because he's from California, so he's been able to wait and work with us. But he is on board to come in. The man has over 70,000 spay and neuters under his belt. He was affiliated with ASPCA in California. As we well know, California led this movement in spay neuter. This is very, very, very old. It's just new to us.
Once he's on staff, just for the public's knowledge, that person will be able to provide microchipping and spay and neutering on site to just anybody walking in there. You can, like, if you're low income and you want to just you don't have a vet per se, and you take them out there, it will be a low cost thing, and you're going to work on a program to have that all drawn up, right?
Absolutely. And if you'll dig a little deeper into Bob's and I background, we're in the neighborhood and family services arena, which we already have formulas to justify proof of incomes and thresholds that we can work out with. But just to expand upon on the veterinarian, right now, if my staff adopts an animal today, I'm a minimum 10 to 14 days out before you, the citizen, can come pick it up. And that's just horrendous. That means I've got, and that's because of the contractual agreements that we have today. Bringing in a new vet, we will be able to adopt today, spay, neuter it, and deliver it to you tomorrow. If not, already have 40, 50, 60 of them done that are ready to go. The city is currently diving into internally with the animal shelter live adoption events. We've ordered a trailer that's going to carry about 22 animals. This is new to us, but it's a big need. We're out of sight, out of mind on 67 North, so we are going into the community to proactively adopt. Those animals will be ready to go. Right now, if I'm at Tractor Supply on a Saturday, which is where we hang out and have a very good success rate for adoptions, the citizen doesn't understand, I can't take this animal home, yet I take their $85. I call in Monday to an appointment, and it's about 10 to 15, sometimes 18, 19, 20 days out. That means me feeding it, I keep it there. The chances for it to get cross-contaminated with some other disease because of the inflow of intake happens. Some die before the citizen gets to pick it up. Very, very, very backward structure. With this new veterinarian, yes, we can offer low-cost inoculations and definitely get into the low-cost spay-neuter. Because instead of sending out the $65, I've got a vet here that's doing it for true cost, which is what I think we should be into, is true cost, not profit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
I don't really have anything else to add other than I think that it might be good for us to review after this vote, maybe at the next meeting, what all the division expenses are, just so we kind of remind ourselves some of the information that's been provided today, separate again from this vote and this issue, but as a standalone item. You know, fully understand all that's going on, and if we want to make adjustments, then we can. You know, I think we all can say we all have priorities on spending. Which services are most critical? You know, perhaps this is one that has been underfunded, or we've been funding the wrong things. So I think we've learned a lot through this process, and I'd be very happy to revisit potentially that budget and how we work going forward. I think that low-cost spay-neuter, though, is very important, again, in this success story. So I'm happy and hope that y'all will, too, revisit the budget of that division.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
The only one last question I had was for James is, you know, the city of Arlington and Fort Worth were brought up, but tell me that you reached out to other communities to find out, does it work, does it not work, is it working? So did you do that? Did you research?
Absolutely. You know, early on when Bob and I took over in March, one of the first things we decided to do was go hang out with successful shelters. We physically visited those places. We spent time with them. We looked at their processes, and almost everyone that we visited had this implemented. But this was a forethought. We were still working on other issues that we wanted to correct internally to mirror a successful shelter. I think through a lot of hard work of the staff that I have, yes, I'm in charge of that place, but boy, my staff is to be commended. I would put them up against any staff in the city of San Angelo. They bought into the mission, and they've done the changes, and they've done some things that mirror successful shelters. Once we were able to get to the place we're at today, and we're nowhere near where we want to be, I think we still have a long way to go. But this is when we were at the point, at the junction in our life where we said, you know, what can we do about the intake number? And Bob started diving in. He started looking at different researches, different real factual-based research studies that were done from Kentucky to California to all over the places. At the end of the day, is there shelters that have this, Mr. Silvas, and it's not successful? Absolutely. But I think that's the burden upon staff. I think if a shelter has this in place, they don't have the right staff to accommodate this type of ordinance. As you well know, I have code enforcement as well. 7, 8 years ago, I heard that wasn't enforceable. And I will say, and I have numbers and I have proof that shows that is no longer the case. We do enforce ordinances around here. Are we going to attack the garage sale issue after today? Absolutely. That's what we do in that department. We change as the need justifies. And that's been a need amongst a couple of council members. So today the directive will be, we're going to do a blitz on garage sales, and you will get a complaint from somebody that got a $500 citation because they didn't know that this wasn't an ordinance. So I think we have the staff to accommodate this ordinance, and I think this ordinance complements the staff. There's not a soul in there that I work with, whether it's the person that has to euthanize that day, whether it's the person that has to pick up that deceased animal because you ran over it in your driveway, that is against this ordinance. So there is shelters that have it and are not successful. We can always find that. But I think we're asking for a fair chance to try it, and I can assure you that we have the staff to complement this type of ordinance. And I'm very susceptible to coming back and talking about this place, because I think from the 8 years that I've managed within this place, with the exception of Mr. Dane in Valenzuela not saying no to me yet, there is a lot of room for compensation out there from our fees. You know, we put an animal down for $7. The juice to put that animal down is $7. So we're not compensating time, labor, FICA, Social Security. Our fees are horrendously way behind the times from that standpoint. But again, I think the research has been done. Bob and I feel very confident. We've talked numerous hours over this. This is the point in our shelter that we go this way or this way, and we're waiting for this decision to determine which way we go. And either way we go, we're going to do the best, and we're going to try to offer the citizens the best service we possibly have. But this is definitely a tool that me and him believe will get us to the next level and get us talked about within the state of Texas.
You know, one of the very first time I ever visited with the shelter was a number of years ago, and I actually got to see a beautiful, healthy, vibrant-looking dog euthanized, and that is not one of my fondest memories. That was just an awful, awful thing. And yeah, you know, I wish it would go away. But thank you for your time.
Well, I just got one
Yes,
last thing to say. I don't know if this is the best thing we could do, but I do know there's a lot of animals being put down, and they're not the irresponsible party. Irresponsible people are. And can a neighbor tell on another neighbor that he gets mad at? That's probably not right. But I guess if you look at we keep comparing this to our driving while intoxicated, and you know, we can't leave that vehicle on the side of the street either. The cops impound it, and if we don't get it back, if we don't have the money to get it back, then we can't get our vehicle back, and that's probably just as wrong. That vehicle didn't do anything wrong either. If we look at taking one part out of the ordinance, maybe we ought to take it all out of the ordinance. I don't like this ordinance. And I really don't like the microchipping. I wish we'd take the microchipping out. That's where I got all my complaints for. But, you know, I guess I'm going to support it strictly because until we find a better solution, we've got to do something to quit putting so many animals down.
Do I have further comment from the council? Not, I'm calling for the vote.
Mayor, can I clarify
Yes,
one
ma'am.
issue? This has come up a number of times, and I just wanted to make it clear. Perhaps when we tweak this ordinance, we make this more clear. But the ordinance itself has a definition of prohibited animal, does not include animals that are spayed or neutered. The only animals that somebody can come onto your property and take from you and dispose of are animals such as endangered animals, venomous snakes, venomous lizards, things like lions and tigers and cougars. If you look in your definition section, that's where prohibited animals is defined. And as I said, that's probably a clarification we need to make, because I've been asked that question a number of times, but it is a little bit.
If we pass this and an animal is not microchipped, not spayed, not neutered, and not vaccinated, then it becomes by this ordinance a prohibited animal.
The definition of prohibited animal is included in the definition section. It becomes an animal that's not in compliance with the ordinance, and you can be cited, and if your animal is picked up, you can be required to get a breeder's permit or get it spayed and neutered. But per the definition, it still won't qualify.
Calling for the vote. We need
a motion.
I'll be happy to make
There's
a motion to approve.
Who's going to second it? Okay, got a motion, we do have a second. We've had discussion, we've had public comment, we've had council discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Let's move on now to number B, which is to consider adopting a resolution designating the Bentwood neighborhood as a master plan community for the.
Can we say one thing? I want to really clarify this to the press, because I know what's going to be in the headlines tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Teresa said this perfectly. People are not coming on your yard to take your pets away from you. I want that to be clearly defined. It has a definition on there. They're not going to be coming in my yard, taking my dogs away from me. I may, you know, if I were not to have them microchipped, it would be against the rules of the ordinance that we just put in place. But as far as them coming on to my yard and taking the pet away from me, they're not going to do that. If my dog gets out, that's a totally different situation.
If James receives a call from a neighbor that complains about your dog, he will go to your house and check your dogs. Will you not, sir?
Correct.
He will.
But we're not going to take your animal. If you're in
But
violation.
you can give him a $500 citation.
But I can give you one for tall grass and weeds too.
Whoop.
I mean, we have that. If you're in violation of the ordinance, we can deal with that. We're not going to confiscate your animal.
But you could. By the ordinance,
what he's
you
trying to
could.
No.
By an interpretation of this ordinance,
How about
prohibited
Teresa
could mean
speak to the
anything.
press after the meeting?
Well, that would be best. I think that.
Yeah. The definition of the animal that she's described, a prohibited animal, if you're in possession of that type of animal, a cougar, a lion, a venomous snake, yes, we can confiscate that. No different than if it was PD and you were in possession of a bag of drugs. But if your neighbor, just like in code, if your neighbor calls code and complains about the tall grass and weeds, we issue you a warning notice of violation, which is what we would do for the neighbor complaint on the dogs. We issue you a notice of violation. That violation is given time to comply. I believe in due process, and I think that that's fair. That's how we've been doing it in code. That's how we're going to do it in animal control. If you don't comply within the time frame of expectation, then that warning citation is sent over to municipal court as a bona fide ticket, and you have a summons to appear.
Perfect.
My problem is with interpretation of an ordinance, and I've been in meetings with Rick. In the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 meetings, and every issue that we have dealt with is taking an ordinance, and it is taking an interpretation of that ordinance. And it's been we've had 2 very serious discussions. And we know what we're talking about here. We know the intent. But in 5 years, most of us are not going to be here. And you're going to be dealing with an entirely different group of people that are going to be interpreted. And prohibited to me means prohibited. And an animal that is not spayed and neutered and microchipped, in my opinion, is a prohibited animal. And so when James Floris's replacement takes over, he said, this guy's not following the rules. He's not microchipped and spayed and neutered. Therefore, it is a prohibited animal, and it becomes an interpretation. And that's what scares me about ordinances that we make today that live forever. But it has passed. It is now law.
But
you graduated from Lakeview, didn't you?
I graduated.
James, let me ask you one more, following up with Rodney. How does my neighbor know or not know, or you driving by my house, that my dog is not microchipped or not? I mean, how?
This
item is closed, so I'm beginning to be a little more uncomfortable with the continued conversation.
I was testing you.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with it from the beginning. Let's move on now. Bentwood neighborhood is a master plan community for the purposes of Section 5514003A of the Texas Transportation Code. John James, step up and tell us what's happening, sir.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This item, we were approached by the Bentwood Homeowners Association about driving golf carts on the streets within their neighborhood. As we researched it, we came up with this solution to address that. One of the things under state Texas Transportation Code allows golf carts to be used on city streets in a number of different circumstances. One of those is within a master plan community, and so that's why we've got this item here to specifically have the council designate the Bentwood area as a master plan community. You can see that there are some common characteristics that make for a master plan community. You can see those on the screen there. And then this is kind of a squished map, but a map of the Bentwood area, and the boundary in red there is the area that you would be designating by adopting this resolution. That's the area of a master plan community. So,
Rodney?
Be happy to answer any questions.
So what's defined now, can that change? That will probably change in the future, though, right?
Of the boundary?
I'm looking at the developer back in the back.
Yeah, I can defer to them, but I can answer part of that because we asked that same question. What we did was include all of the areas of Bentwood. We got with them to get their master plan for the future, but we included all of the areas that are currently within the city limits. So if they ask to annex additional property for development, we would have to come back and amend this. We didn't feel comfortable giving this designation for any areas outside the city limits currently.
One thing that I want to point out is that the residents in Bentwood, there is state law right now, and I believe it's within 2 miles of a golf course. They do have the right to use those golf carts to travel to and from the golf course, I believe is how it's written.
That's correct. And what this would do would expand that to say if they want to just go down the street to visit a neighbor or check their mailbox.
That's how this came to be. And this is my district, and a lot of people were checking their mail and going to the convenience store or something like that. and this will make it more convenient for them in that area. This is also a good thing for us to have a master plan community within our city limits. I think that this is a positive thing, and it makes San Angelo kind of go to the next tier in cities. You know, we're a small city, and this is something that probably needed to be done a while back. I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Marty?
How is this different from, didn't we go through a whole golf cart deal with ASU?
We did, and we gave special exceptions to ASU. We gave some special exceptions to UPS, I think.
Yes.
We gave some special exceptions. Primary problem we were having with this was Chief Vasquez going out and trying to enforce the laws. We had kids driving these golf carts around, and it was unsafe. This ordinance, as it is written, makes them follow state law, which means they have to be of age, they have to have a license, they have to have permission. So this just simplifies the law, and it gives Tim and his officers the opportunity to enforce a law that is fair. I think is fair.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way I see it.
It's not denying anybody their rights.
It's not denying them their rights.
Just
Can
making
they
sure that it's
confiscate
not
the
denying
golf
They
anybody
can
their
confiscate
rights.
the golf course if it has not been chipped.
Can they confiscate the golf cart if an illegal driver's driving?
Yeah.
That's
They
up
can't.
to,
Sorry, John.
That's the
that's
police.
up to Chief.
Is that on
Nah.
the internet, the golf cart being chipped?
Okay, my question is, say for instance, another subdivision wants the same thing that Bentwood has. Are they gonna have to come before us again
Yes.
and ask for the same thing?
Yes, you would have to make a similar designation.
Even though they'd have the same requirements? I mean, these are the requirements that are gonna be required of them. They still have to come before us and ask?
Yes, because one of the requirements is that the city designate it as a master plan community.
But Bentwood is different than a lot of areas in town. Not to say that there could be a couple other neighborhoods that might be able to do this, but Bentwood does have community areas that are within that community and to do golf, tennis, swimming, things like that. So in order to do the master plan community, I think that you'd almost have to have a lot of those same features in the other communities.
Do I have public comment on this item?
How many master plan communities do we have?
None. This is the first one.
This would be the first. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This is.
No public comment. Further comments from council? Motion has been made that we accept this as it is presented. It has been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on it. Number C is consider adopting the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Public Hunting Program for recreational hunting land at the Twin Buttes Reservoir property. Carl White, you have the microphone, sir.
Yes, sir. The purpose of this item is to get some direction from City Council regarding the proposal to adopt the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Public Hunting Program for the recreational hunting lands at Twin Buttes Reservoir. The property is managed by the City of San Angelo. As you likely know, the lands around Twin Buttes Reservoir are federal lands. They are owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. The City of San Angelo does manage those properties through a lease with the Bureau to provide the water collection and for recreational lands. In this presentation, we'd like to show you what the existing situation is for those recreational lands, give you an update on what has been done to improve the situation, talk about what we think still needs to be done, present a proposal to adopt the TPWD Public Hunting Program, showing advantages and limitations, and discuss briefly any further steps we think still needed. This is a quick map of the properties. Here are the two reservoirs, the North Pool and the South Pool. This is the map that is in the city ordinance. It shows the different hunting areas. There's 7 hunting areas. A couple of things we think need to be addressed with this map is, unfortunately, the body of water is not as large as depicted here. It's a lot smaller, as you'll see in the next map. And this hunting area number 7 is an area where there's a lot of recreational activity like mountain biking, running, and ATV use. And so we think it's not necessarily a good place to also have hunting. Here's a conceptual map of what a revised map could look like with the boundaries extended into the reservoir. Of course, when we get more rain and the reservoir holds more water, those lands designated as hunting, of course, would not be accessible. This area here, we would propose not to be available for hunting because it sees a lot of recreational use. There is some property in this location across from the South Pool that is owned by the Bureau that could also be opened up for hunting, and we'll talk about that briefly here in a second. The current situation, we're still seeing illegal activities out there. We're seeing dumping. We're seeing the use of fireworks. The use of fireworks at those federal properties is illegal. We're seeing littering, and we're seeing vandalism, as you can see in these pictures, as well as just unfettered use of firearms. The use of shotguns is illegal out there, but not pistols and rifles. Okay, just briefly, some of the discussions and actions that council have had previously. Back in 2010, we got some direction from City Council regarding security and management. And then we followed up with an item to ask City Council for some matching funds, with mostly Bureau of Reclamation funds, to fund the pipe railing and gate projects. That has been done. We added pipe railing fences to lots of different areas to keep vehicular access limited to the gates. With Bureau funds and a little bit of city funds, we got a recreational use plan for the Twin Buttes properties, and that was adopted by City Council in 2013. We've done the pipe and rail and gate project. We've improved SAPD law enforcement. I would have to say that we once had the Lake and Park Police. Once the city police department oversaw, incorporated the Lake and Park Police and began to oversee Lake Nasworthy and Twin Buttes properties, we've seen a significant amount of improvement in law enforcement in those areas. So that's been a major plus. We adopted the recreation use plan, and more recently we've been having meetings with TPWD, the Bureau of Reclamation, city staff, to talk about additional measures that we think are needed out there. And we've also begun to survey the property lines, particularly where the fences need to be repaired or replaced. So what we would like to do is consider a more effective management program. To be honest, I don't think we're doing a very good job of managing those properties out there right now. It's a little hands-off. We think we need to improve that. So should we keep with the status quo? Of course, we don't think so. Should we adopt a recreation use plan? Ideally, yes, but that recreation use plan recommends we adopt a state park program for those properties, which we of course don't have the resources to do. We don't have the resources right now to improve those properties and to hire staffing to basically create it as a state park, like a state park. So we think something else that adds an overlay, a level of better management is needed, but without all the resources. So that's how we've come up with the thought about adopting the TPWD public hunting program. I'd like to now introduce Justin Drabelbis with TPWD and Jason Hubner with the game wardens, also with TPWD, to talk about the Texas public hunting program.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's just the arrow. Okay, good deal. Appreciate being here. My name's Justin Drabelbis. I'm the Private Lands and Public Hunting Program Director for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And this is Jason Hubner.
I'm with the game wardens here locally for the Region 1 Law Enforcement Division.
And so what we'd like to do is just give you a little bit of background on the public hunting program, talk about how it might work with Twin Buttes in particular, and then what the benefits would be for the city. This is our mission statement, and you know, to start off, hunters pay for conservation, pay for wildlife conservation. I can tell you our wildlife division, through license sales, stamps, and Pittman-Robertson dollars from excise tax on firearms and ammunition, pay about 95% of our wildlife division budget. And so we have an obligation to the hunters of Texas to provide as much public access as we can, and so that's why public hunting is an important part of our mission. As you might imagine, a state like Texas with as much private land as we have, there are some major challenges to providing public access, but opportunities like Twin Buttes are a very good way to do that. We've had a public hunting program in Texas with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department since 1954. Started off as draw hunts in our wildlife management area. and in 1987 went to an annual public hunting permit as well, and this provides walk-in access on about 1 million acres across the state. And so you can see on the PowerPoint presentation, we do it in a number of different ways. On our wildlife management areas statewide, on state parks, on partner projects like this with Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Forest Service, and others. And then we also lease private land to make available for public users. Our annual public hunting permit it's a $48 permit. It allows access with a hunting license to over 1 million acres statewide for walk-in hunting access. A lot of this is dove and small game, but there are white-tailed deer, feral hog opportunities, and other species. We've got over 180 different hunting areas statewide, and it's proven to be a very good tool to provide this public access to hunters. We also do have a $12 limited public use permit that covers the rest of the activities: fishing, camping, photography, those types of things. And then and Jason will have some good information on what that LPU permit offers. If if we were to go into a partnership here, the process would look something like this. City of San Angelo and Bureau of Reclamation would have regular interaction with our Texas Parks and Wildlife Department biologists locally, come up with a harvest plan so that it's sustainable populations on the property. We would then put the information for the hunting season into our annual public hunting book that I believe each one of you have. And then this goes out to every hunter that gets an annual public hunting permit statewide. And this last year we sold somewhere around 37,000 public hunting permits statewide. And so the permit requirement helps with law enforcement, and the interaction with our wildlife biologists in the area will create lots of opportunities for habitat management through things like prescribed burning and other habitat management practices. So there's definitely an upside as far as the wildlife habitat goes on the property. And I'll let Jason talk about kind of how these permits will help with law enforcement.
Okay, so the law enforcement, right now as it stands, you have some city ordinances that I believe
Please
ban.
speak into the
Oh,
mic.
sorry
You're
about
being
that.
recorded,
Yeah.
sir.
So right now, the way it stands, that law enforcement has, there's some city ordinances out there that ban the use of rifles and pistols out there. But as a state game warden, and I get a fair share of those complaints that they're shooting rifles, they're shooting pistols out there. When I go out there, I can do nothing about that. That's not against state law. So that's one area of concern that we have out there. There's quite a bit of that. You can drive around the area, you can see the shell casings and whatnot. Bringing on these permits will allow us to take the burden of some of the rules out there, and we'll be able to disseminate those rules, I think, a little bit more effectively as well. And then we can also enforce some of those, what would be almost mirror some of your city ordinances would be in our annual public hunting lands booklet, some of the rules that accompany it out there. And so I think it gives, it boosts your law enforcement capabilities out there when we can go out there and effectively help enforce some of those rules that are in place. Right now, I don't know how it sits with the city police department, but I know it's kind of vacillated between off and on what they can and cannot enforce outside of the city limits. So we get called out there. We get several calls. We field those every year. A lot of times, unfortunately, I've got to tell the landowners that are calling in about the activity. There's nothing illegal about that. They can. I can't help you in that area. It would require city law enforcement to go out into those, those areas that are a little bit further out of the city limits in order to enforce those. So if you have any questions, just feel free to shoot them at us. Or, no pun intended.
We do know that there's a lot of nefarious activities that go on at Twin Buttes.
and it is a problem, and it can be dangerous. So I like to see you boys out there with some extra enforcement. I think it's good for our citizens. I think it's good for the people that use the Twin Buttes.
And one of the things I do want to address is there's obviously an illegal dumping problem that goes on out there. With the limited use permit out there, I think that's going to help curtail, and I don't expect to see immediate gratification. This is going to take time. It's going to be an education period. There's also going to be a law enforcement discretion before we start issuing citations if they did not have these permits. There's going to be an educational period of a couple years, I think, that would take place. But for $12 a year, if they're not hunting, okay, so $12 if they just want to go out there and run, they want to go out there and camp, they want to go out there and do photography, whatever the case may be. But I think that's a fairly economical option, and they buy into the program. When people tend to have to pay for something, I believe that they take a little bit better care of it out there as well. So in order to hunt out there, they would have to have a $48 permit. I want to make that clear. It's a $48 a year, but that opens up access not only to Twin Buttes, but also to San Angelo State Park, which requires that permit as well. So they can hunt out there. It opens up that activity, and it opens up what we said, over 1 million acres, I think, in Texas that they can visit that are, relatively close to San Angelo as well. So they're getting a little more bang for their buck, so to say, out there again. But as far as the illegal dumping, that's one thing that on our end as game wardens I'd like to curtail that. I think it's going to take a concerted effort along with prosecution here. That we start enforcing some of those rules, and I have some ideas behind how we can catch some of the illegal dumping that goes on out there. And those first few that we do, I don't want to hammer them, but I do want to send a message that they will be prosecuted for the illegal dumping. And I think we can clean the place up. I think it'll also be will increase the quality of the experience for the people that are going out there and using them, and it'll be a cleaner place to go visit as well. It's just going to take a concerted effort on law enforcement and on the prosecution side of the house to alleviate some of that problem.
May I ask a question about
Yes.
the permits?
Sure.
If they just want to go out and photography and walk around and run, it costs them $12.
Yes, a year.
If they buy the If they buy the $48 permit, that gives them the opportunity to hunt, or to go out and do photography, or run,
Correct.
or camp, or anything. So
Correct.
it's either a $48 permit that is all inclusive, or it's a $12 permit for limited use.
Yes, and on that limited use permit, so let's say I have a family of 4, husband, wife, and two kiddos. The kiddos would not be required to have those $12 limited use permits. Both husband and wife would. So essentially for a family, it could be $24. I don't want to misguide you on that in order to use that property. Another thing that we're going to have to address in order to get under compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations, which BLM land falls under, is the use of ATV and UTVs out there. Right now, under the Code of Federal Regulations, there's not, I think only in one area, and that's in Hunt area, in the Area 7, is designated that, but there's not supposed to be any UTV or ATV use out there under federal rules. I think our department is charged with making more or increasing opportunities for ATV and UTV use, and I don't want to see those necessarily go away. We just need to do it the right way and get it approved through the BLM and have those areas designated that they're open up to it. And we're going to have to tackle that a little bit at a time. But I know our department, I'm willing to take that on and start addressing that issue as well. One thing I do want to let you know is I want to keep the openness of, and I think we all feel that way, we want to keep the openness of Twin Buttes. We want it to remain accessible. I don't want it to become where we're having to lock gates and this and that, because people like to go out there at night, go fishing and things of that nature. I want that to stay as it is. But at the same time, I think with the limited use permit and the annual public hunting permit, hopefully we'll remove some of the people that want to go out there and just do their, because there's some dark places in Twin Buttes. They can go do their illicit activities. I think we'll have an increased patrol out there, and I believe that'll help alleviate some of those activities.
Council, you have comments for him? Questions?
So right now, we say that you can only use a shotgun. Is that what you're saying? But right now, there's not enough enforcement. There's no presence of staff out there to enforce that. So you have the discharge of other firearms. Okay. I mean, having been associated with the city for a few years, it worries me what has been going on out there. Whether it's the use of, rifles, just shooting rifles or pistols, and knowing that people are out there kind of like mountain biking, and then you have the whole fireworks kind of thing in the summer that's kind of crazy. The dumping, it has the potential to be something really nice. And so if this moves us into a direction to kind of realize that, I'm all for it. Thank you for your interest.
Are you going to move approval?
If you want me to, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any other?
Carl's has something to say.
We're going to take baby steps.
We're not necessarily looking for action today. We're really just kind of looking for direction. Do you want to
Okay.
go this direction? If it takes the form of any ordinance changes, we'd have to bring those back. And it may take the form of a memorandum of understanding, which would have to get.
Okay. So you don't need a motion. You don't.
Correct.
Okay.
We
You
just
need
some
consensus?
direction. Yes, sir.
You need a consensus? Lucy, how you feel about this?
I'm for it.
I like it. Johnny?
Terrible, terrible. No, I'm kidding.
Marty?
I like it. I want to move forward. The shotguns, is that done by ordinance?
The shotguns, yes, sir. I believe. I mean, that's right now. It's supposed to be buckshot only. You know, we would want to maintain the ability to certainly to allow the use of shotgun still being used out there for waterfowl hunting and dove hunting. And we'll explore. There's going to be some different options we have on whether or not we make it for as far as deer hunting and varmint hunting and everything else that takes place out there, whether it would be archery only or still continue to allow the buckshot. I think we would need to, that would need to be discussed further. That's kind of getting into the weeds of the rules, though.
Okay, so we're going to possibly take an unenforceable ordinance and do something with it?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, Mayor.
Can we microchip the shotguns?
So, yeah, I'm in favor of it.
I'm definitely in favor of this, and really, especially nowadays, because of the skyrocketing cost of deer leases. I just got a deer lease this week, and so I know that in order to help people that may not have the means to get out there and get hunting and teach their kids, you know, the great lesson of hunting and gun safety. I think this is a great deal. I hope that we can get this to go through.
Johnny?
Now, this has nothing to do with me driving out there, go boating, go fishing, this has nothing to do with, right.
Okay, so now if you're going to go.
And I'm sorry,
ahead.
I'm asking about the $12 or $24.48 amount that we're talking about.
Okay, so if you wanted to go boating out at Twin Buttes, you would, or fishing at, say, Garner Dam or something like that, you would have to have the $12 limited use permit to go out there and do that.
Okay.
Yes. And what you're getting in return necessarily isn't always maybe tangible, but you're going to get more guidance from our wildlife biologists, technical guidance on what Justin alluded to earlier on how can we improve the habitat out there through prescribed burning and things of that nature. We've also been in talks with the Texas Forest Service about creating a fire break around the perimeter of that area. That would take place it's not going to be done overnight, but it would take place over the course of a few years, which I think is needed out there, which might also in turn open up a little bit more access in some of those areas that are hard to get to for the public as well.
Awesome.
You got a consensus of 6 on this, Carl. Is that enough?
Yes, sir.
Do we have public comment on this before we close this one out? Yes,
First
sir.
one.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bill Ware is my name. I'm very much in support of this program, but I would like to add that I would like to see some priority given to youth hunting programs and hunting for disabled veterans. I think anything we can do to ease those people's problems with hunting.
Did you hear that, Carl? I hear it. I think that's a good idea. Any further public comment on this before we shut this one down? Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. Number D is consider adopting a resolution, and thank you for our books too.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Consider adopting a resolution nominating candidates to serve on the board of directors of the Tom Green County Appraisal District. Brian, you taking this one, sir?
Yes, sir. This is just the first step. This is the nominating step, and all the current members of the appraisal board have expressed interest in continuing to serve. You can choose to nominate them, or you can choose to nominate somebody else in any of the positions, but you have 5 nominations that you can make as a body.
Okay, the 5 directors we have on the appraisal board right now: John Begnaud, John Kahn, Russell DeVore, Luis Gomez, and Bob Reeves. And personally, I think all 5 of these gentlemen are top notch. I like every one of them. We have so many votes that we're able to use. In the past, we've thrown them all at 1, or we've thrown them at 2, or we've divided them equally among the 5.
Right. That process will actually come later. This is just the nomination, and then we'll come back to you. And
so we don't have to make that decision today?
No, you just have to nominate 5 members, and then Bill Benson will compile that list and come back, and you'll be able to vote.
You need and there's no requirement for city being in the city limits or anything, correct?
Inside the appraisal district, they have to be a resident of the appraisal district for the previous 2 years before they can be nominated.
Do you need a motion?
I like these 5 men.
I move to
it'll be by
approve
resolution.
the 5 folks that are on that list.
Okay.
Well, I'll second it since the mayor likes it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How long have these people served?
That's a good question. I believe this same exact set has been there for 4 years now.
I'm saying 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's 4 years now. They're ending their 4th year. I believe there are a couple of members that have been there one more term, but I don't know what they are right off the top of my head. I believe
Russell DeVore may have been there a little longer, but I think Begnaud and Kahn and Gomez and Reeves, I think, were in their first term.
I think that's correct. I apologize.
So this is the total service? It's a 5, the entire board is 5?
5 members, yes, ma'am.
5 men who've been on there for 4 years?
Yes.
I think, though, I mean, I don't have anything against any of them. I think, though, that when we're talking about turnover, that it's healthy to look at that regardless of which board that it is, rather than picking and choosing. So that's my comment, to always sort of rubber stamping the group that we have.
So noted.
John Begnaud has been on 2 additional years, but everybody else has been there for 4. Sorry.
Further comment? Public comment on this item? Then that's all you need is, you need a motion to accept these as nominations. And it's already been made and seconded.
Or nominate a
right.
woman.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying.
I got behind
seems to be
myself. I got the cart before the horse.
Some opportunity for diversity, either this vote or the next one.
Motion has been made. We accept these 5. It has been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on. All right, that has concluded our regular agenda. Closed session, executive session under provisions of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Number A, Section 5510711A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of his attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding 1, 2013 seal coating program. We've already dealt with 2.
There is more on it, though. She does have some more to say on 2, so we will be going that way.
Oh, we will be talking more on. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and read number 2. Marta for Hurstville Energy Systems, LLC, ETAL. Number 3, Templeton Construction Incorporated. Section B, 551087, to discuss an offer of financial or other incentive to a aeronautical services company at the airport. Number C, Section 551072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at, and you say number 1 we have pulled. Number 1 has been pulled. Number 2 is the spur parking garage east of 40 West Tuig Avenue, San Angelo. It is 12:06. I take us into executive. And 2, I call the meeting back to order, and we are now to follow up administrative issues. Number A, consideration of and possible action on matters discussed in executive closed session if needed. There was one. Would you give me the wording on that, Brian?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve a lease with Unidad Investments LLC for the spur parking garage and authorization for the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents.
Anybody want to move on that one?
I'll move.
Anybody want to say it?
That's my understanding is what we discussed in there on the lease only?
To negotiate a lease. Right. That's what we're authorizing.
Negotiate.
We will negotiate a lease on the parking garage of the Spur building downtown. That's on the corner of what, Tuig and Randolph? Irving. And they've already bought the Spur building, and now they want to negotiate a lease for the use of the Spur parking garage, which will require a substantial investment to rebuild, to negotiate for parking and a compromise between the city and the builder.
Brian, that was negotiate and execute?
Yes.
Okay.
That garage is unusable from second, third, and fourth floors at this time. So it'll make it where it'll be usable.
They will fix it, repair it, bring it up to standards, and leave it in such
It's
state.
not falling down. It needs repair.
Refurbished.
Yes.
Unusable.
Public comment on this item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on it, please, sir. Number B, announcements, consideration of future agenda items. Start with you, Elizabeth.
I have a chat planned for October 19th. Still working on location, so I'll put that out on Facebook and let the city manager's office know. Also, I would like at the next council meeting for us to review all of the fees related to animal services. Also, I would like to maybe talk also about the advisory board, because I think there is maybe some I'm not going to say disagreement, but I think there might be some difference of opinion as to what the purview of that board is. I'm not sure exactly how involved they actually are in the shelter. Not sure how many of them have ever been to the shelter, but we'll see. And just to echo what's going on with regard to garage sales, more specifically the trash that's around the city, I think we all get a lot of complaints about that. That's probably my number one Facebook problem, is the lack of enforcement on the signs that are put up. But staff will tell you they like to pull the signs down because then they can call the phone numbers and tell people to quit. But I think we're all tired of looking at them, and I don't know what we need to do to remind the public as to what the regulations are regarding that type of thing. That's all.
Do you want, Ms. Grindstaff, do you want agenda items, or can we talk about action plans?
I think on the garage sale issue, the action plan is fine, and that might be something that Anthony and Brian do on the channel, just as a reminder, you know, keep our community clean. These are things that are not allowed and that, you know, actually harm us. But on the animal-related issues, I'd like that on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you.
And the posting of signs also, when she says that, posting of those signs on those telephone poles, I've noticed that a lot within the last 2 weeks. That is illegal.
I think that we need to get Anthony to put on his superhero suit and fly by and snatch up a sign. Maybe that'll get the message out.
Lucy?
No, sir, nothing.
Johnny?
I don't have anything.
Marty?
Nothing.
Rodney?
I would like to bring back the discussion and possible action on texting and driving inside the city limits. We passed this up last year because we said that the Texas legislature was going to take this up and do something about it. They did not. So I'd like to discuss it again and have possible action.
John?
I just remembered, I was asked just last week, I think Anthony might have mentioned the new cameras that we're getting, when that's coming, or when.
That's going to occur after the next meeting that we have in here, between the last October meeting and the first.
They're closing it down for a couple of days there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Should be enforced by the first meeting in November.
Okay, good.
One thing I want, and this has to do with this spay and euthanization, I want a report. I want them to go back to March of this year. I want to go back 6 months, and I want euthanization numbers for every month. March, April, May, June, right up through, and I want them to continue from now on, maybe from now on. And I want these euthanization numbers each month. I want them in our packet so that I can compare in 6 months down the road and a year down the road as to what it was 6 months back. Because I don't think it's going to work, and if it doesn't, I'm going to bring it back. Anybody else have anything else?
Move for adjournment.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This meeting's over.